Peter, how are you?
Really good, Wayne. How are you?
Great. Energized again because I took a short nap. I think the short nap is crucial because without it, right, I probably couldn't continue anymore. Super
Good on you.
exhausted. Yeah. So I haven't had my lunch yet. How about over there? Where exactly are you at this moment?
I'm in Sydney. I'm in Sydney, Australia. So it's 2:00 on a Friday afternoon, and so we're pretty chilled here. It's good weather outside. Getting ready for the weekend.
Fantastic. I prepared a bunch of questions, but before I dive into the questions, just tell us about, exactly what you do, who inspired you to start podcasting, and was it your idea, was it somebody else's idea, or was it because maybe one of your customer demanded that you start podcasting?
Yeah, no, I started podcasting actually a while ago. I originally started with community radio, and so this was before podcasting was a thing. So I guess it shows my age a little bit. I'm not that old, but I've been doing broadcasting for a while. I was doing it as a hobby to start with, just in different community radio stations around Australia or Sydney. And that was proving pretty fun and an interesting way to engage with a small community. Then moved over to doing podcasting. I did a podcast for small businesses, and that was linked to the community radio station. But then stopped for a little bit. But probably 2 years ago, started my current podcast and now business that I operate called Talking Health Tech. And that is a podcast for doctors, developers, and decision makers in the health tech scene in Australia. And really just started the podcast as an opportunity, like, to be honest, as a personal branding opportunity to start with, and way to network with a few others within my industry. It's quite a niche area of health tech in Australia, but it proved to be quite popular, and then it grew quite quickly. I went from doing an occasional show every now and then. I thought maybe I might do 20 episodes and kind of just close it off and do some other kind of crazy project. But I just recorded episode 123 this morning, and we do 4 episodes a week across a public podcast as well as a members paid podcast. So it's pretty intense. And then the business, which I'm happy to tell you about as well, that's got all these other kind of aspects. But the podcast definitely sits at the top of that funnel, I guess, and it's a pretty critical part to everything that we do.
Fantastic. So maybe for the benefit of those in Asia who are still not familiar about what you do and your background, we understand that you worked in management roles, right? So that was probably in the health tech industry or healthcare organizations for over 15 years, and including big ones and small ones, innovative startups and slow-moving biz. I think that's how you describe it. So you have seen all different kinds, and you've experienced firsthand the exciting developments and the frustrating stagnations of all the ups and downs in tech. So Talking Health Tech actually represent a large community of people around Australia, right?
Yeah, it's funny. A few years ago, so pre-COVID and everything happening, there within the healthcare scene in Australia, technology was, it's critical. It's an important part of healthcare. However, seen as quite niche and difficult to kind of get your head around how technology can be best utilized within healthcare to deliver better patient outcomes or have a more efficient healthcare system. Then obviously with COVID and the need for telehealth and remote monitoring, the ability to get healthcare from your home and have a clinician monitor what you do, it then opened up health tech to be something that's relevant to not just a very niche kind of area of like software developers within healthcare, but it was relevant to the people that created medical devices and pharmaceutical companies and the GPs, so the primary care physicians, hospitals. And so in a broad brush approach, health tech is relevant to many within the healthcare industry. And Australia, being its own big island and quite separate to everything else, often there's not a lot of content that is quite focused on the Australian health tech industry. And me working within that industry for the past 15, 20 years, knowing that it's hard to kind of put this stuff together and make those connections, I felt it was really important to focus on this area in particular as I build out Talking Health Tech.
That's great. And of course, you must have gained some wins from creating and hosting Talking Health Tech, right? This podcast features conversations with influential doctors, developers, decision makers, playing the Australian health tech scene. So tell us about some of your biggest wins.
Sure. I guess we've had lots of really interesting guests and great conversations, and and I could talk about a lot of those, but I think generally, if we're focusing on podcasting specifically, by starting the podcast, that started the business, and now Talking Health Tech is my full-time business. I used to be employed within the health tech industry for a number of years in like senior management roles. And doing the podcast, when I started, initially I had no intentions to monetize it. I was really just looking at it as a way to build some connections. And that's a great way. And often that's, all that podcasting needs to be. Not everyone needs to, build a business off a podcast. But at the same time, I remember at the early stages, people saying, well, obviously you're just doing this for fun. You can't work doing a podcast full time. And it's like, of course you can't. But we've got all these different ways to support what we do and grow through monetization, either on the side of sponsors and also on the side of membership. So we've got a strong membership community now as part of Talking Health Tech, and just built it over time. The website's got a directory for companies to create a listing. We've got a really good kind of flow now in terms of being able to support what we do to be able to continue to grow it. But more importantly, from my side, the podcast feeds then the community, where we continue to have these conversations on our own platform, on our website, and try and link everything together. So the podcast has been such a great way to tell these really quite complex and detailed stories around quite difficult, topics to understand around healthcare and technology that can be quite technical. My approach has always been about having quite an approachable conversation with these founders or these policymakers or these, anything in between, thought leaders, investors around health tech. And that, I think, is why it's been successful, is that it's just allowed a lot of people to learn more about the industry that they're working in or want to get into.
What if we Google, for example, what is health tech today? Will it be inundated with definitions when, in its simplest form, health tech for us describes the use of just technology in the delivery of healthcare, right? So, why do we face so a number of problems in the healthcare industry today, like aging population, longer life expectancy, increasing chronic disease, and healthcare system is decent but still broken? Do you think that these are the problems that will still be prevalent, or do you expect it to be still broken in 2021?
Oh, look, I think in Australia, the healthcare industry is we're quite blessed in Australia having a good healthcare system overall. There's a lot to be done, but generally, comparing on a global sense, there's good, we've got a good healthcare system. We've got the ability for individuals who might be in more disadvantaged areas or not have insurance to receive care if it's required. So it's, there's a lot to be done within the Australian healthcare space. I think technology can fill a lot of those gaps. And, to those problems that you mentioned before around, we're getting older and, more chronic disease, we're just getting we're going to be older for longer generally. So the need is only going to increase more, whilst at the same time, the number of clinicians, number of doctors, nurses, and everything going through university and becoming qualified is reducing. And that's not just in Australia, that's everywhere. So, using technology will likely be probably the only way for us to sustainably ensure that people remain healthy and we don't have these catastrophic kind of situations where large volumes of individuals can't receive, basic levels of care. So we talk around a lot of these challenges on the podcast on a regular basis. And they're not easy problems to solve, but they're interesting ones nonetheless.
So we are still going through this pandemic, and of course, and in this unpredictable pandemic world, technology is no longer a novel addition to healthcare, but mission critical, right? And despite living in an age where information is literally at our fingertips, many patients still want to be more engaged in the healthcare regime. So why is that so? Do you think that this is going to be even more scaled up and more even mission critical?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just an assumption. Like, as I guess to look at that question in a different way, with more individuals coming through that have a higher expectancy of using technology in different ways in different assets of their life, knowing in healthcare it's pretty hard to access your healthcare information using tech here in Australia. It's hard to engage with your clinicians. There's a lot of kind of challenges around connecting patients and clinicians generally. And when you don't have the connectivity and don't have the engagement between them, then that results in poorer health outcomes and all these kind of things, right? So when that expectation is there from patients that it should just be as easy as being able to order an Uber or, do something else like watching Netflix, like everything that you're normally used to doing with your phone, there's this increasing expectancy that they'll be able to, that patients can do this kind of stuff as well. So we're going to see really innovative solutions come out, and we are seeing really innovative solutions come out. At the same time, there's like lower barriers, which mean, or at least providers that are creating solutions that aren't meeting regulatory, like really important regulatory requirements. And that's usually why healthcare is quite slow in terms of innovation, is because it's really important that security is right, and that if that's providing diagnosis or anything like that, that it's all accurate. So that'll all take time. But what I think generally we need to be careful of as an industry is that, these pop-up solutions that might just be software developers thinking, hey, this is a quick way to, connect A to B. It's just not as simple as that. So there's some more kind of intricate challenges that need to be worked out.
That's fantastic. And why is it that, in terms of your journey of becoming a manager and a leader within Australian healthcare, right? And what are some of the most important lessons that you have learned during this particular journey?
I think just one of the really important lessons that I've learned has been about realizing that you don't have to be like your manager, or you don't have to be like the manager that you aspire to. Trying to replicate someone else that's, whilst it's often a form of flattery, is that someone's trying to imitate you, and that you think, oh, this person's in this position, so I want to be like them, so I'm going to speak like them or try and dress like them or do anything. When I realized that, if you just keep being yourself, then everything becomes a lot easier. I think you don't have to keep remembering who you're supposed to be, and you just get on being yourself. You're more genuine, more engaging. That's typically a bit of an Australian trait anyway, of just being kind of genuine, down to earth, but it's kind of worked effectively for me. I think that I spent a lot of time early in my career so focused on qualifications and obtaining qualifications, thinking that would be the way that I would then move into senior roles. And I don't know, I think that the qualifications were helpful for me, but they were helpful more so for the fact that they just provided me with the self-confidence that I could do these things rather than the technical proficiency to do them, because everything's changing so quickly. The stuff that I learned in the MBA or a CPA are important foundational things, but they're not things I'm using on a day-to-day as a senior manager. The things I'm using on a day-to-day as a senior manager are things that I'm learning like on the fly about software as a service and all these other kind of, modern things. So, it's continue to be yourself, but like having the self-confidence, and sometimes doing a qualification so then you feel like you actually know what you're talking about. That's a good way to do it. But as soon as you can nail down those two things of having the self-confidence of just being you, then normally that can then unlock a lot more other opportunities that exist for you.
So you've shared with us some of your thoughts on doing an MBA. So what are your other thoughts on imposter syndrome and also the importance of community in personal development?
Yeah, I think Community is really important. I think that, that's why we've built the Talking Health Tech community online. We've got a forum where individuals within the industry can connect. I know that working within that industry for a long period of time, it's hard to find other individuals who are like-minded or, are experiencing similar challenges to you. I think that so often working within an industry, individuals can take a view that, I better not share anything with anyone else in case someone steals my idea, or, hey, this person might be a competitor, so I'm not going to tell them what I'm doing or what I'm thinking of doing because I don't know, because they might steal it or laugh at me. I don't know. So I think, but there's so many more opportunities that get unlocked when you can share with other people and talk about an idea, bounce off others, even in a virtual setting of like an online forum. But we also try and do like virtual catch-ups face-to-face and work through some challenges. We have kind of, more deeper like think tank kind of opportunities where we'll like tackle with a tricky problem. So I think in any industry, not just health care or health tech, having a community, your tribe, your group that have the same kind of weirdo quirks that you do, but also the same challenges, and people might be 2 steps ahead of you and, have solved a problem previously, but also, you might be a couple of steps ahead on another problem that you can help others with. So it's definitely a give or take. And that I feel is a really important attribute as well.
You mentioned that you are doing like 4 episodes every week, and I think that's really prolific. And of course, you have already reached the milestone of episode 123, right?
Recorded up to 123. I think we just released episode 110 on our public feed this morning. Yeah.
That's like nearly 30,000 downloads, which is quite a feat. What was the journey like? In order to reach on podcast episode 110, nearly 3,000 downloads, going from one show every fortnight to 4 episodes per week. So you're also doing like additional live streaming video episodes. So that's like a podcast that you're doing every week. So how was this journey like to reach this milestone?
It gets busy. And I keep wondering whether it's the best idea or not. No, but I enjoy the content creation. So I really like the podcasting platform to be able to tell stories, to learn and ask questions. I think that we're just looking at when you say we've got the video thing going on, we just started that the last couple of weeks and doing a weekly live kind of review of what's happened within the health tech space. And it's just another cool medium to be able to do something a little bit different. And we're going to start experimenting with perhaps some product features or something else using that platform rather than just like another podcast episode, but doing it as something a bit more kind of engaging. We've had some recent episodes where individuals others have watched in and asked questions, and that's been pretty cool. Doing the podcast, I found it really interesting launching because we've got 4 episodes, but we do 3 episodes on our main public feed, which everyone can find at Talking Health Tech on their podcast player. But then we also have a members podcast, which if you become a THT Plus member, which is our membership model, you get a bunch of things, but you also get your own private RSS feed. And probably a few podcasters are familiar with this. We use a platform called Supercast, but there's other ones out there. But Supercast have been really good for us. So we that's been quite cool. And for me, I've used the extra episode a week that we do on the members podcast as an opportunity to challenge myself a bit more to share my own thoughts on a particular topic. Because when you're a podcast, when you're doing the interviews, so often you're not actually imparting your own knowledge. Or at least in the early days, I wasn't I was just asking the questions and then kind of going, okay, great. And then we move on to another question where I have a lot of insights and kind of perspective on these things, but it's kind of forced me to take a view on some of these things, which I've not really had to do in the first 100 episodes of just asking people other questions. So I've really enjoyed the Sunday episode that I do. It's a bonus one, and it's about a particular challenge or issue that we faced or a theme. and that's just like quite a monologue episode as opposed to like an interview. But we're going to start again experimenting with the bonus episodes by having community members contribute content to those as well. So we might be able to do, you know, a member episode when they don't have their own podcast, but they have got something interesting to share, or maybe they've written a blog and they could do like an audio version of it. So just again, I'm all about experimentation, different platforms. I've tried a lot of things and then decided not to go ahead with them, and then other things have stuck. So yeah, it's definitely trial and error. That's what I would say.
I love that you're experimenting, also adopting a multi-channel approach. What's your take on Clubhouse? Are you thinking of translating or maybe moving some of your like Q&A sessions, doing it in front of a live audience, and getting all these live audience to raise up their hand and come on stage and pose those questions to you so they can give your take on those questions as well?
Yeah, we one of the live streams that we did live stream on like LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, but then we also synced it up to Clubhouse at the same time. So we had like everything going on at once. And I think that was probably a bit overboard. And I realized at that point that I kind of knew as I was doing it, but I kind of just wanted to see whether it would work because that's just fun. But they're two very different mediums, right? You've got the live stream, YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn thing, kind of like what we're doing now. But that is where members or individuals will comment, and then we might talk about something like that from time to time, but one of those issues that come up. Whereas Clubhouse is designed to be collaborative and kind of building on each other and a bit more kind of free flowing rather than someone, like people just commenting above. So have done a few Clubhouse sessions. I'm in there and have contributed in some of these rooms, again, more around the healthcare side of things, but also occasional ones about podcasting. And there's a few Australian clubs and stuff that I'm part of, which is always fun. But at the same time, there's a lot of like individuals not trying to add a great deal of value, really just trying to stake their claim at Clubhouse and build a funnel and do all those things. Whereas I don't think like that's, I guess everyone's on this sugar rush of this new platform that exists. And yes, I think that audio socials is a game changer. I also think that like with Twitter coming out with something soon that's going to be pretty similar to Clubhouse, and no doubt other platforms too, which have already got a very strong following and are device agnostic, there's going to be a lot of competition for Clubhouse as well. I think that they've done a great job in really establishing this kind of sense of community culture and excitement around audio. And I think that's awesome. And I think that audio socials is going to definitely be a thing, much like, Instagram did Snapchat. I almost gave Instagram credit for stories and stuff, whereas Snapchat kind of really pushed a lot of that out, but then Instagram ran with it. Same deal with audio socials, is that we're probably going to see that as an element of all our social platforms at some point. And then it's just that becomes the more meta approach to it, as opposed to just Clubhouse is the platform. It'll probably still exist and it'll be quite cool for, particular niche people or maybe marketers to be able to speak to other marketers. But in the end, socials for audio, it's a cool platform. It breaks down a lot of barriers and just gives new depth. It's going to be interesting to watch how it goes out.
Will you be taping your podcast in Clubhouse? Like so many people are already saying that you will be birthing maybe the next 1 million podcast shows and directly from Clubhouse. And of course, that requires some workaround solutions, right? Like masking tape several apps or equipment together. But the kind of impact that we're expecting is like the kind of impact Anchor has provided, where they added 1 million podcast shows because of the ease of actually pulling off, the feat of doing a podcast show there. Do you think that Clubhouse will also birth 1 million shows in the next year?
Oh, look, I mean, maybe, but as well, like if you look at the 1 million podcasts that are out, I think the stats say something like only 25% of them have had an active episode in the past, 3 months or something like that. So there will probably be a lot of people that get super excited about launching something on Clubhouse and this will be the next thing. But then I think consistency will prevail, and those that are passionate about what they do, it doesn't matter what medium necessarily they're on. And if it is right for them, then they'll probably find Clubhouse the other way. But as long as they're passionate about what they're doing, and they might find it another way, then Clubhouse could be really cool. But I don't think there'll be of course there'll be a couple of people who do quite well and that's their platform and they ride that wave. But over a longer period of time, those that play the long game and are just producing quality content and keeping aware of what other mediums exist, I think they'll be the real winners through the whole marathon of this race of content and audio.
I love that, you mentioned the word marathon, because coming right up, my next keynote speakers are marathon runners and they're waiting backstage. So I have to maybe bid you adieu. Thank you so much, Peter, for coming onto the festival and sharing your insights and some of your wisdom as well. And also jamming with me about this hot topic about Clubhouse. So maybe next time I'll see you, probably will be in Clubhouse, where we are doing a live Clubhouse event there and bringing this particular festival over there as well. So I'll probably see you very, very soon on Clubhouse. Yeah.
Perfect. Love it. Excellent. Look forward to speaking to you then.
Thank you, Peter. Have a nice day over there. Cheers. Take care of yourself. Yes.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
Sorry to keep you guys waiting.
Hi. No problem.
Hi.
I'm happy to be here.
How you doing today?
That, you're... Yeah, I'm great. I'm actually feeling a bit tired before I start, but now that I'm re-energized by Peter Birch, because you brought so much wisdom, and I think I'm going to get the same from you guys as well. You're going to bring your A game, because you guys are marathon runners, and that's a massive, mammoth project, I would say, anyone would undertake in their life, right? I've always wanted to run a marathon. I've never done it. Haven't done it yet. So I think a good start would be probably to listen to your podcast. What's the name of your podcast, by the way?
It's called Marathon Training for Beginners, Wayne. And thanks so much for having us. We're excited to be here at the Podfest Asia out here in Arizona.
Yeah, we're so excited. And Wayne, you totally can run a marathon, because our podcast and our community is basically based on marathon training for beginners. So it's, kind of taking down that stigma of, not just anyone can run a marathon, or no one can run a marathon. We're saying like anyone can run a marathon. So
I love that tagline, because anyone can, yeah. And anyone can be a marathon runner. That's really incredible and inspiring at the same time. So I'm going to just dive into some questions I prepared for you. I'm really, interested to find out what are the 5 goals as a beginner, right, to marathon running. In terms of the 5 goals while running in the heat at night, because in Singapore, where I'm from, sunny island Singapore, the heat is overwhelming sometimes. So what are the 5 goals while running that kind of distance in those heat in the evening time?
Well, you're putting us on the spot here, Wayne. I'm just kidding. 5 things. So we'll come up with a few. I don't know if it's going to be exactly 5, but you see, where we live in Arizona, it's really hot as well. So we feel the pain. This time of year, it's beautiful. So when we're talking about heat, the most important thing is hydration. So I'll let Mo talk a little bit about our favorite form of hydration.
Yeah, well, water. Water, obviously. No, it's just not just hydration, like, on the run. It's prior to the run, after the run, consistently hydrating your body so that it's prepared no matter when you run. Because I know for me, when we first started running, I thought, oh yeah, just drink a lot of water as I'm running, but it's really important and vital that you prepare before and then you recover after the run with water. So that's the biggest one.
Yeah, and we like to take in what's called noon tablets. Mm-hmm. They're like these little hydration tablets you put in, and you can do it before your run. You can have them in your water during your run, but it's got the electrolytes and can keep you going. So I'd say that's probably, when you're talking about running in the heat, that's probably the most important thing. And then, of course, fueling in general. So anytime you're getting your run up to, beyond about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes or so, that's really when your body's going to start to need additional fuel. So really being able to hone in your fueling strategy, not just before you start running, but actually on the run, is super important. And it would probably take us the full half hour with you to explain how to fuel for a marathon and fuel for a longer run. So we'll just leave it at that part. But fueling is super important. So as far as the next most important thing is running shoes. So you've got to have, and this applies to both the cold and the heat, doesn't really matter the temperature. If you don't have a good pair of running specific shoes, then you're not only going to be miserable, you're not going to move as efficiently, and you're going to potentially injure yourself. So that's probably one of the very first things when you're about to get into running that you want to do is get yourself a good pair of shoes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also, like, for instance, here in Arizona in the summer, it's really hot. I mean, like 110 degrees plus, like that's the norm. So basic like equipment. So like have a good hat, and like I like to wear like running specific hats that are kind of more lightweight, have more of like what's the word?
Like a sweat wicking.
Yeah, sweat wicking technology fabric. So that's not too heavy for you. And then also sunscreen. Just keeping your body prepared.
But I think the key to avoiding all of that is the time of day. So Mo and I like to either wake up before the sun comes up or once the sun has gone down, late night, 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, just to try to kind of beat that heat rush. So there's so many things we could talk about, but those are probably the 4 or 5 things that we would recommend.
Let's zoom in on that running shoes that you brought up, right? How do new runners like me pick the perfect pair?
That's a good point.
So yeah, it's a great point. So I would say find a professional running store near you. And I know that sounds like, come on, that's not very good advice. Why can't you just tell me what pair of shoes to wear? But the thing is we all have different arches. We all have different feet shape, and everything about our mechanics is different. There's not a single person that runs like another. And so you've got to go to a store where they can do what's called a gait analysis. So they can look at, how does your foot land? What does your mechanics look like when you're actually running? Because when you're walking, when you're running, it all looks different. And so if they can put you on a treadmill, or if they can watch you on the street, put you in a couple different pairs of shoes and see how you react to them, see how they feel in real time, that's the best possible way. Now, if you don't live near a running store, you may have to work off of trial and error and do some research and figure out, okay, maybe I'll try this pair, and if it doesn't work for me, I'll send them back and get a different pair. There's good online stores that will let you do that. So I know with Roadrunner, they'll let you, if you buy their VIP pass, they'll let you send shoes back if they don't work out for you.
Yeah, it's really important not to settle too, because for instance, when I first started running, I just thought, I'll just go run in the Nikes I just bought from the store. And while they were super cute Nike shoes, they didn't have the support that I needed, and they weren't specific, especially for my arch. And that was tremendous in terms of how I ran and how I recovered. So finding the right shoe and the right fit is super important.
You guys are dishing out the best advice, and it's unbelievable that you guys are also new to running, right? And together you are documenting your marathon training journey on like the best passive medium right now, definitely podcasting, right? For content consumption while we run. So podcasts, and do you think that you'll be actually able to translate some of your content on a platform like Clubhouse as well? Are you on Clubhouse?
Yeah, we are. In fact, Wayne, I think that's how you and I met, I think. But yeah, Clubhouse is fantastic because, I'll be in a room that's completely unrelated to running. It could be about, I don't know, entrepreneurship, or some other topic, food, anything. And I'll say, hey, I'm Harrison. I host a marathon training podcast, and all these people, come up and speak, and they message me on Instagram and say, hey, I'm a runner too. Let's connect. And so there are so many runners out there. One of the things we haven't been able to figure out yet on Clubhouse, and maybe because it's still in its infancy, is how do we find all the runners out there? We've applied for our own club, haven't been approved yet. It's been a few weeks, so hopefully soon. But yeah, the goal right now is really just to find that crowd and bring them all together so we can start getting on some joint chats.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. And of course, it's always a great channel to always get your content discovered and find and build network, right? I think that's what we love about podcasting. That's what we love about Clubhouse so far. It's also a great way to get to know new friends from around the world. And of course, grow your followers. I would say that growing your listenership is actually one of the great things that you can do when you're clubhousing or actually hosting or moderating your own rooms, right? Have you started any of your own rooms yet and basically title it, Marathon Beginners? Come on in.
Yeah, we have. And it's been pretty successful. We've connected with a few people that we now feel are close friends of ours. And we're like, wait, we've never met. You're out in Canada. You're out in England,
Ireland, Australia.
Yeah. all over the
Asia, like all over.
Yeah, and so we've loved that platform, and we hope things continue that way. In fact, we at some point when more people catch on and we feel like enough people are there, we're going to start doing maybe some live podcast streaming on Clubhouse, because then we'll be able to take some live questions from people, which we've never had a medium to do before. So I mean, I'm sure you could do it through Zoom or something like that, but nothing as accessible as Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think there's so much talk about the next 1 million new podcast shows will be birthed from Clubhouse as a result of everyone testing their signal right now. Yeah, especially those who are interested in podcasting but never, had that opportunity or that ease of just pressing a button and immediately they are live, and the listeners are immediately, below them in the audience, area. So this is definitely a great way to build network and even become an authority. So just want to find out, your take in terms of like what you actually learned from interviewing, people on your show, and not just find people who are marathon runners or beginners or those pros, right? You interview physical therapists, running coaches, and of course, fellow podcasters as well, about preventing injuries and training with them. So what is the biggest learning that you've gained from doing this podcast?
That's such a great question. Wayne, you are awesome. You're an awesome interviewer because these are great questions. I definitely think for me, the biggest impact has been that everyone has a story, and everyone has a story to tell. Everyone has a story to connect with. And so it may seem scary, especially when we were first starting out, podcasting was quite intimidating, but being able to see and connect with all different types of people from all different places and backgrounds and find that common ground has been so gratifying. And it has led to us making friends across multiple, countries, but also multiple like disciplines and backgrounds and interests and passions. So that's for me.
Yeah, I echo that. And also the bond that you share with someone who you're interviewing that you never imagined you would have the chance to talk to. We've had the incredible opportunity to speak to some professional runners, Olympic level runners. We've talked to everyday runners who run, hours slower than the Olympic runners. And that's okay because, as Mo said, everyone has a story, but also you build this bond as though you're now friends with people that you've never met before. And we've never experienced anything like this. And we're just absolutely hooked. We love the process and we love who we've met along the way.
Oh, yeah.
This is brilliant. And of course, we are all, on this path of chasing our dreams. And I think there's always this saying that dream big and start small, but most importantly, just start, right? And normally the starting point is to do your own podcast because it's just the best medium to build network, to become an authority in this area as well. So what does it take, in your opinion, to chase your dream and also to do the unimaginable?
Yeah. So, running a marathon is the unimaginable, right? When you think about it, most people look at a task like running a marathon or creating a podcast, all these things in life. It doesn't have to be those two. It could be anything. It could be a career aspiration that you have. It could be having a child, anything in life. And it seems impossible, but you said it perfectly, Wayne. The best way is start small, but start. And I tell that to Mo all the time when we have these ideas for things, and we get intimidated, like, oh, there's no way. There's not going to be an audience for that. People aren't going to want it. Why not try it? Why not start? Why not dabble in it and then pivot, right? And so I think to your point, you couldn't say it any better than just start. Just put yourself out there. I'm a very impulsive person, and sometimes Mo and I we don't clash on it, but she's the opposite. She likes to take her time and really think things through, which I think actually makes us a good partnership because I try to jump into everything and she kind of reins me back, and then
vice versa.
And she really helps us put extra thought into things and really polish things off before we put them out unfinished. So it works out great.
Yeah. And I think one more thing I wanted to add is just to normalize that it may be awkward and it may not be once you hit that publish button, it's going to be a smash hit, and just like accept that that's okay. And that's part of it. It's part of going through the stage of, okay, this may be awkward to talk in a microphone and like talk to a little tiny little screen. But that's okay because it's part of the process and it's going to make the journey even sweeter once you're able to build that follower base and to get more comfortable in front of a screen. So that's been really helpful too, especially because our beginning episodes, we were recording them at like midnight after we had put the kids down. Not my finest moment, but we did them.
We still do that. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? And the only way we can fit it in, being young parents is figuring out a way to fit it in there. I think with any channel or anything that you do in life, not everything is going to be a slam dunk. But if you do it enough, you do it often, you gain skill and you gain validation. So for Mo and I, we might have put out 10, 15, 20 episodes and maybe one of them stuck and one of them gained popularity. And we're like, okay, now we know what people want. Now we know what content runners want to hear at the beginning level, And that's really how we've been able to hone it in is really listening to our audience and iterating along the way.
This is amazing. I think you guys are the perfect pairing. And I enjoy listening into your beautiful process of creation as well. And, to find your co-host, to find your co-conspirator on a project like this, right, it's quite amazing that you guys, are coming together to do this. And of course, what's the idea, for doing a podcast like this? Was it whose idea exactly? Is it somebody else's idea or one of your ideas? Or is it because like a request from like a family member or a friend?
So there's a pretty incredible story to that. I'll let Harrison tell it because it's technically his story.
Well, yeah. So what happened was, and it's kind of a somber story, but so I was never into running. I wasn't even a podcaster. I knew nothing about podcasting. And your point earlier about Anchor, Wayne, it is such a true statement. I would have never started this podcast we would have never started this podcast were it not for Anchor. And so I had dabbled in Anchor because my company at the time had a sort of an internal podcast and I was on one episode and I was like, this is a lot of fun. And so it kind of planted in my mind, okay, there's a platform out there. So I was training for my first marathon when my mother passed away. She had passed and she was going to run a half marathon and we were going to run it together. And then when she passed away, she couldn't fulfill that dream. And so I decided, you know what, I'll run her half, my half, I'll do the full thing. But I'd never run anything before. And so it was a huge undertaking. And a lot of people would look at me like you're crazy. But I was able to do it. And along the way, I had to really search out good content to figure out how to get it done. And what I found was all the running podcasts out there were for people who had already run a bunch of marathons. They already knew the lingo. They were professional runners. And I couldn't relate to them. I wanted a community. I wanted to feel like I was running with friends, something I could listen to and be like, okay, they get me. And so I turned to Mo and I said, there's so much that I want to share. I kind of want to start a podcast. And she said, well, hey, I'll do it with you and I'll run a half. And she had never run anything before. So it started off with her running a half marathon and now she's training for her first marathon. And so it's just evolved into this whole lifestyle. And I can't even tell you the incredible benefits physically, mentally, through our relationship running has brought. It's truly changed our lives. And this podcast has as well.
This is a beautiful, it's also an amazing story of how you start this podcast. And when exactly, in terms of what are exactly your superhero stories? Because we know that, there's so many great marathon runners, right, in history. And there's so many podcasters as well. So maybe could you tell us what are your podcasting and also marathon superhero stories? What ignited your passion about marathon running and also podcasting?
Well, I'll tell you while Mo's thinking about that. As far as podcasts go, I think the number one best podcast of all time is Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History. I just think it's so beautiful, so perfectly produced.
We love Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
We're big fans of his books.
So I would say he's my personal podcasting hero. I'm curious to hear if Mo has a different one.
Oh, I have a question, Wayne. Do you mean like podcasting hero in general or like experiences that we've had of like with our podcast, like moments that we've had with our podcast?
It could be both. It could be either or. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually going to take an experience from our podcast. So I we have 2 children, and being younger-ish parents, it definitely has been a learning curve for me to figure out that balance between, obviously being a devoted mother, but also self-care, taking care of myself. And I didn't realize when I was going through different postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression that I had an actual, I needed help. And so through our podcast, we've been able to interview these incredible women who have beautiful stories of how if it's not running, it's fitness, or it's just a person, just anything or one that they've been able to draw inspiration from that's helped them. And in turn, that has left a huge impact on me and just how, I can apply that to my life. And so that's kind of my superhero moment, is talking to all these incredible women and relating to them and connecting with them.
You see, Mo always gets deep, and I'm always just kind of giving you what the basic stuff you asked for. So she digs a little bit deeper, and I'm just kind of in the kiddie pool. As far as superheroes in running, I can't believe some of the people we've been able to talk to. There's an Amazon documentary called World's Toughest Race, Fiji Eco Challenge. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. And we got to interview the father and son duo, Mark and Travis Macy, who are kind of the stars of the show. The father has Alzheimer's, and he was able to, do this amazing race. It's 300 or so kilometers through Fiji. And anyways, we could talk all night about that, but we had the opportunity to interview them. That was amazing. And I could go on and on about all the amazing people that we've interviewed.
This is amazing. And we only have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to squeeze in one last question before we let you go. Which running watch to buy? Apple Watch or Garmin? Or I don't know. Do you have a guide to pick the perfect fit? Just like how you have great suggestions and recommendations on how to pick the right shoes?
Yes. Okay. So we started off running with the Apple Watch. Have nothing against it. It's a good watch. It's very, very, very good if you're wanting a more simplistic design. But without a doubt, our go-to running watch is the Garmin. Specifically, we have the Garmin. I have the Garmin Forerunner. I think it's 745, and Harrison has the Garmin Forerunner 645.
She's one-upping me.
But no, it's fantastic because not only can you see in real time all of your running stats, everything from your heartbeat, your cadence, your miles, all of it, but it also tracks your sleep, it tracks your stress rate, and it connects all of that. It's just a phenomenal watch.
One thing that I love about Garmin is it will literally tell you how long you need to rest for. So if you went on a really hard run, it knows that, and it says, okay, rest for the next 35 hours or whatever it is, and it spits that out. Another thing that very few people know about Garmin is there's actually training plans built within the watch. So if you want to train for a half marathon, you can go on the app and you can just set, training half marathon, and the watch every day by day will tell you how much you need to run. So it's designed for runners, for athletes, whereas the Apple Watch is just a nice sort of smartwatch, that you can buy as a companion to your cell phone. But I think there is absolutely no comparison.
I love all these recommendations. I think it comes directly from you, from the podcast hosts who have interviewed tons of people who have knowledge about these things. So you are the authority. And I think that it will be great and also very appropriate to give you another chance and opportunity to maybe a last message to the Asian audiences for those who have yet to check out your podcast. But I think after this appearance, they're definitely going to dive into your episodes. What are your last message for the Asian audience?
I'll just say, come connect with us online. We would love to hear from you. If you give our show a shot and you connect with it, go on Instagram. We're at Crummy Marathoners. So we would love to hear from you. Send us a DM. Tell us what country you're from. Tell us if there's any content you want to hear about, and we'll put it out for you. We love expanding our audience to different countries.
Yeah. And I'll just say that it's all about, like he said, connection for us. It's not even about, building a brand or building an empire. It's just about connecting with other people from around the world and showing that we're all in this together, whether it's running or whether it's just having that other person to share your story with. So we can't wait to hear from you.
You guys are so inspirational. I'm going to start my marathon training very soon.
Wayne.
My compliment, yeah, and also my podcast go-to content to actually keep me going, yeah. And so, thank you so much for what you do. I really appreciate you agreeing to do this, Mo and Harrison. I'll see you guys really soon, maybe in Clubhouse, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Have a good one.
Bye.
See you guys. Cheers.
Thank
Go-to content to actually keep me going, yeah. And so, thank you. Hey,
so
Yoky, how come I'm hearing myself going in the background? Oh, I think you're on, right?
Yeah, you're right.
How are you, my friend?
It's good. How are you?
A little bit tired because this is like day 2. So day 2, normally I'm like almost like 35 or 40 guests in. And that's the moment when, you really have to push yourself because it's like almost there, reaching the destination, but still like there's a long way to go. So now it's all about, mental right now at this moment because I'm really tired.
Yeah. Being a fan, is it being a fan helpful for you to stay awake?
In terms of like getting this energy and also these, awesome guests, people like you, right? Coming on to the festival, you're giving me the fuel to push on. So I have to thank you for agreeing to do this,
Cool.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And of course, we're going to start to dive in by talking about passion. I think Liverpool is definitely your passion. Today, you're well-dressed. I'm not well-dressed because I don't have that Liverpool logo there. So tell us how your fascination for everything Liverpool, how did it start for you?
Yeah, I guess there's a bit of intro. Is I currently work in a communication agency, which is specialized in sports and culture. And I'm working for a couple of projects and brands. And one of the projects that I work on is something that is very close to my heart, which is Liverpool FC. And I had this beautiful opportunity to think of creative ideas and ways to engage fans around the world.
Great intro. And of course, we have to ask you about the idea for your podcast because you have a podcast which is called Reds Bersatu, yeah? And from that name of the podcast, straight away, we know there's a association with Indonesia because that's Bersatu is the Indonesian word for number 1, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's more unity, actually.
More about unity. So it's like Reds United, but not that Man United.
Not that United, yeah.
Right. Okay. So finally, I get my answer that I need, which is basically what Reds Bersatu actually means. So it's about uniting, Liverpool fans from around the world, and specifically in Asia and in Indonesia. Right? There are tons of fans, Liverpool, Asia, especially in Indonesia.
I think it's a massive numbers. I think based on the 2020, at least there is 75 millions of fans in Indonesia. I mean, if you compare to the numbers itself, it's bigger than the entire population in UK itself. So it's a big market and it's a lot of passionate people.
It's fascinating, and so it's really impressive that you're setting up this Reds Bersatu Clubhouse podcast. And we know that you will be your first ever, foray into the podcasting realm. And doing Clubhouse, that means that you're one of maybe a million new podcast shows that will be birthed right from Clubhouse. That I think everyone is expecting there will be a boom in number of podcast shows as a result of Clubhouse. So maybe let's tell the audience in Asia, right? That was the idea for your podcast you're doing someone else's idea, suggestion, or was it a LFC fan from Indonesia? Is it for a request from a LFC fan?
Actually, it's quite interesting one. I mean, like every idea is always start with a story, right? On events, kind of stuff. So, as you know that I've been fans for almost 3 decades now. So it's kind of like, it's of course like as a fan, it's been up and down journey to support the team. And we know that LFC supporters is in this part of the world, kind of stuff. It's millions of them, kind of stuff. And we kind of like support the team differently. Like some of us who are lucky enough to watch in Anfield, that is definitely the ultimate goal to be a fan. But of course, like not every one of us have the same opportunity. And kind of like what most of us do in this part of the world is catching up with friends over the match viewing party, which is like technically it's equally fun things to do. But we gather like-minded people, kind of like we cheer, we hug, or even sometimes tearing together because of in one place, face to face. But of course, like we all know that COVID hits, and there is almost like none of these physical activities going on, and we kind of like miss this kind of interaction among fans. And basically like people who I must say, like in this kind of like time, like people who makes this journey of supporting this team bearable, even when the team is not doing so well. And basically this podcast idea itself is almost like allowing fans to be able to connect with others during the game, and even better beyond 90 minutes. So we kind of like, we pour our hearts and soul during the game, right? But it's even better if we can interact with other fans after the game or anytime we want. Like, and each fans hopefully can benefit with each other kind of stuff. So there is this interesting example that I have. Like I have this friend in, I think he's from Bali, Indonesia, Bali, Indonesia. So he's a great wedding MC. He's a massive Liverpool fan, and he's also a wedding MC. So if one day he joined this kind of like podcast and in Clubhouse, and then somehow like other fans are checking out his profile, like, oh, actually there is this Reds fan who is MC, like in like maybe in the couple of months kind of stuff, like when this other guy like having like wedding or other ceremony kind of stuff, we kind of like somehow he can approach this MC, like because they both are fans kind of stuff. I think that's how do we create a strong network of fans and basically never let others walk alone.
This is fantastic. Of course, that tagline is something that is so powerful, right? Especially during dark times. And I think there are many tough times as a Liverpool fan, because so many decades of not winning the English Premier League. And finally, when they won it, there's a pandemic. And of course, right now the team is kind of struggling. I wouldn't say that, we are in really bad shape, because the owners, the coach, the team are still intact. And of course, the signings that they have made recently are actually very promising signing, and for the long term, yeah. So you mentioned about you never walk alone. So that's the tagline for Liverpool Football Club. Can you tell us maybe what are some of your LFC superhero stories? What ignited your passion about LFC? And of course, your passion about doing this live podcast in Clubhouse.
Nice. So actually, my Liverpool journey have been really interesting. But there is one very interesting story that I have, I think, back in 2016. Yeah, 16. Like I still remember, like my wife was pregnant that time, and we had our trip to London and Liverpool. So this is technically my first trip to Europe. Yeah, and so I was very excited. And then since we go to UK and stuff, like why don't we catch a game, like Liverpool game and stuff? And we decided to book a pair of tickets to Liverpool, and we came prepared with tickets and then how to go from London to Liverpool and etc. and stuff. So basically 1 week before we flew, this is getting very interesting. So Liverpool was doing so well in Europa League at the time and stuff. And we are in semi-final, I think, yeah, we are against Villarreal and stuff. And then we won against Villarreal, and it was it's definitely good for the club, but not good for me. Like, I mean, people will ask why you are not so happy about it. So for football fans, like we know that sometimes when your teams are progressing to the next stage of the European League, right? On the downside of it is on the league, local league, they will kind of like shuffle and postpone matches, kind of stuff. Then that's exactly what happened to us. So our match is being postponed for a day. So it's kind of like such a painful news to receive, and basically we can't push our flight back to Singapore because it's not ideal for my pregnant wife. So we decided to still visit Anfield just to have the stadium tour, which is still quite meaningful, even though it's not a game. So as a fan, I mean, when you first see the stadium, of course, like it's those kind of feeling, like when you touch the Anfield sign and when you step into the Anfield pitch itself, it's just crazy and stuff like. And I'm no different with other fans. I'm just like look like a little kids, like getting a candy, those kind of stuff. Then basically, like I step into all the stuff. But there is one thing that is very interesting. Like my wife can sense that there is this little disappointment on my face because we couldn't catch the game. So I mean, as wife, I think she can sense it kind of stuff. So I still remember there is one things that she said to me and I still remember until today and stuff. So she said this in the Anfield pitch itself, like she said, like remember my words, like one day you will come here again and you will do wonderful things with this club. So it's just like it's crazy kind of like words. I mean, I won't believe if that she say that kind of stuff, but who knows, like 1 year after I came back and not just watch live game, but I create some videos for Sadio Mane and Trent Arnold.
This is a fascinating story, incredible story. And of course, we want to hear more of it. We know that, you have created quite a huge number of content involving Sadio Mane, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joe Gomez, and Jurgen Klopp. And, you're a very driven storyteller that helps brands who believe in the power of sports. And you live and breathe Liverpool FC 100,000%. So my next question for you is about when did you actually start doing LFC commercial projects and passion projects like this one?
Yeah, I believe after that moment, after I left UK and then there is this opportunity arise in Singapore. So where I could handle creative projects for Liverpool, which is kind of like such a dream kind of stuff. So basically, when it offered to me kind of stuff, it's kind of like I immediately say yes. And it's kind of like it's been 4 wonderful years since creating works with the club. And I mean, the brands try to reach fans around the world. And we created, like, as I mentioned, like kind of like fun and meaningful projects, from kind of like film about the history or the contents, or to the app that highlighted the pre-match ritual for fans. And then the latest, the Boot Room augmented reality app, which kind of like allowing you to step into this sacred room that brings a lot of trophies in the 80s, I believe. Yeah. But at end of the day, the objective of all the project is always to bring the fans closer to the club.
This is amazing. And I absolutely love that Boot Room app. I think it's an award-winning app. So many fans around the world are still talking about it, still using it, because that's basically the best way to stay connected, right? And of course, there's basically no limit to your love of LFC. You're also a big fan of the city, right? You love the Liverpool, the Merseyside area, and you make so many trips to Anfield as well on multiple occasions, not just for work, but of course to support Liverpool for leisure as well. And I understand that you're obsessed with collecting or keeping collectibles. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think as you mentioned, is the love is first about football, right? But there is one thing that when I step into the city, I can sense this. There is a huge kind of like Beatles influence, right? I mean, Liverpool is all about the club and the Beatles, right? And basically, obviously, I wasn't a big fan of Beatles, because when I was growing up, I think I born way after the Beatles era. And basically, during that trip, I remember that I took this magical bus tour. And basically, this bus is around like 30 minutes. It kind of like visited a lot of memorable and historic places for Beatles members. I think there is George Harrison place kind of stuff, and their school, their house growing up. And I think that the tour ends at the famous Cavern Club. I mean, I'm sure you love the club. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, the Cavern has so many great memories. I think the last time when I made my trip there was 2 years ago. I think the last game of that season when we almost clinched the title on the last day. But of course, Man City, they won, right? So the Wolves game, I remember. And after, I think the next morning or the next evening, I went to the Cavern and basically was singing together with the fans all the Beatles songs, all the classics. So the whole city is full of Liverpool fans, Everton fans, of course, and Beatles fans. And you see tourists from around the world all descending to the same place, right? Especially, the place where there's so many memories and all these great songs are birthed from that city. So I love the city together with you, totally 100%. We are really waiting for the day when we can actually go back there again, when borders are reopened and it's safe travel to Anfield. My next question, maybe let's back it up a little bit about how you actually hustled. Yeah, I think it's probably something that every Liverpool fan actually dream of, creating content for them, or maybe to be able to embark on a project, right? Like your role as a creative director, creative person for the company that you represent, you're creating tons of great content for them. So how did you actually hustle in the beginning to build a resume for creative roles? And did you have to give up like a high-paying job or career to do what you love?
Yeah, it's very interesting actually. I mean, I believe there are a couple other opportunities I decided not to take because of this job, right? And but until today, I have no regret of like rejecting this kind of opportunity and take this job instead. Kind of like I think there is kind of like in life there is this principles or ways that I always believe. Because I have this book. This principle is a Japanese way of doing in life. I'm not sure if you ever heard the terms ikigai. So basically, in a nutshell, if you want to make lives worthwhile, there are three things that you need to intersect with each other. If you found these three that answer these three things, that means hopefully your life will be more meaningful. I mean, the first one is you need to find what you love. Then the second one is what you are good at. And then the third one is how can it make the world a better place. So if once you can find one thing that is like intersect these three things, hopefully you found your ikigai. I mean, in my case, like, have I found my ikigai? I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, incredibly humble, and I think I could actually feel your passion when you're talking about Liverpool. So this ikigai is something that maybe is also a very good thing that we could maybe find these answers within podcasters ourselves as well, right? From the Podcast Asia community, many of us are trying to also find a breakthrough, find the answer to success. There's no shortcut, but if we find that ikigai, right, that means that we have a higher propensity to be successful in maybe our podcasting career, or to make really, really great shows, right, that resonate with our audience. So I want to maybe pick your brains a bit more about how do creatives, actually make campaigns better, because I think you're a perfect person to answer this question, since you are in such an important role in the company that you work for, and now you're doing, a live podcasting on Clubhouse as well. How do creatives make campaigns better?
Yeah, good question. I think different creatives have different ways of making better campaigns, right? I mean, in my case, I'm quite lucky that I work on projects that people are really passionate about, like sports kind of stuff. So technically, we kind of like already won the battle by 50%. But sometimes when I create this creative campaign or creative ideas kind of stuff, like I have this mentality. There's this I call it the MVP. I mean, MVP for us stands for the most valuable players in NBA kind of stuff. But in this case, MVP for me is M is for move people, and then the V is values, and P is purpose. So like move people, your work needs to be to move people. They need to show certain emotion when they look at the work, whether it's happy or empathetic or different kind of emotion. And then in terms of values, of course, like every brand have values, and that the consumer may not know. Like through the words, you have opportunity to share the values in the most creative way. And then, of course, the last one is purpose. Like every words has to serve kind of like certain purpose and hopefully make the world a better place to live in. Then when you take these three aspects, you will have a more meaningful works.
I learned a new term today for MVP. So thank you so much, because I think it really resonates. And I think this is a great takeaway for podcasters, right? To also maybe bear this in mind. Ikigai is one, MVP is the second. I think that would help us to create even better campaigns to promote our shows, for example. So thanks for that piece of advice. And we're going to move on and talk about your countrymen. Of course, I think you were birthed in Indonesia, and although now you're based in Singapore, right? Indonesia is always, in your heart. And of course, you're doing a podcast where you're conducting it entirely in Bahasa Indonesia. So it's like, what can your countrymen in Indonesia can actually expect, or maybe when can they expect to hear live podcasting, or even replay episodes to drop on Clubhouse, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts? And how are the majority of fans in Indonesia actually watching live games there? Do they join Clubhouse during watch-alongs?
Yeah, that's interesting one. Also, I think for now, I think I will start my podcast in Clubhouse itself, right? I think because this is almost like my first way of reaching fans, because in Indonesia itself. I think even I think I mentioned, there are 75 millions of people in Indonesia, but kind of like Clubhouse is still not as popular yet. I believe like one of the reason is because like they are only launching it in Apple, like iPhone. I think that that's kind of like almost like half the population of the country itself. But doesn't mean that there are not many fans. I'm sure there is. And I think that's the first thing is I'm trying to gather like all this mass audience in Clubhouse first. And once we know each other, hopefully we kind of like have this kind of like army, like a bunch of passionate Indonesian fans that love the club itself, And I think end of the day, the podcast is for fans, it's less about me and more about these millions of them. And in Clubhouse itself, I mean the good thing about it is kind of like you will be able to connect to other fans like beyond 90 minutes. Like as I mentioned, like the example about the MC, like once you check out the profile, you know more about this person, kind of stuff. Like, and maybe in the future I can collaborate with these people, kind of stuff. I think that's why I think Clubhouse is the best place to network somehow. And of course, like against like Liverpool fans, we want to benefit each other, kind of stuff. Like that's what's being Liverpool fans all about, isn't it?
Fantastic. I think that's a really valid point. So about the ways that Liverpool fans in Indonesia are actually consuming the games, right? They are getting the same feed as the rest of Asia, right? They can watch it over cable. They can also like stream it. I think these days it's quite popular to be able to stream, some content of Liverpool either on even the Xbox, I think. So there are so many ways to tune in, right? And everywhere, they are trying to gain and capture the attention of the Liverpool fan. I think Clubhouse is also like trying to capture the attention away as well. Like I've been, hanging out in Clubhouse recently and doing watch-alongs, and I realized that I actually, focus less on the screen these days. I focus more on the conversation because it's so, engaging to be able to talk to fans around the world while you watch a game that is going on live, right? And to discuss like either bad officiating or a bad VAR decision against our team again, Yeah. These are the things that you definitely want to debate and discuss with people around the world and see whether they are aligned with the same thoughts as well. So what are some of your biggest, takeaways after, actually experiencing your first Clubhouse experience and actually being engaged and being able to experience a watch-along session?
Yeah, I think that I guess like speaking like just like focusing on the Liverpool podcast itself, I think there are a lot of like brilliant minds. Like doesn't matter which country you are from, like they understand the game. Like they are probably not the pundits, but sometimes they talk more sense than the pundit itself, which is like it's quite amazing for me. I think hopefully like with this kind of like the almost an army of people when they give opinion, and hopefully like in the future, we kind of like the club can kind of like feels that maybe like why not like we hear something from fans, like maybe there's some things that can be implemented in the club itself, like maybe like if actually like these millions of fans are not happy with this decision kind of stuff or about the ticket price or some sort. Hopefully this kind of like the power of fans are giving the best to the fans and the club itself for the future.
That's a great answer. And of course, in Clubhouse, right, we see some ex-Liverpool players being really active on Clubhouse. I think Jamie Carragher is now over in Clubhouse almost every night doing his own football show. And of course, ex-Liverpool players, they always have their own podcast shows as well. I think Robbie Fowler has one called Godcast. And even Stephen Warnock, right, one of the maybe lesser known Liverpool fans, he's also seeing a lot of action online as well. So do you actually fancy having, some of these Liverpool players or ex-Liverpool players on your podcast, maybe like joining in to the conversation, coming on stage with you and actually participate, in your room when you're actually hosting so many Liverpool fans that are in Indonesia? And are you able to like switch, every now and then and maybe converse with them in English and then helping your Indonesian listeners to translate it in real time as well, so that it becomes a way to actually break down language barriers, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not sure in terms of the adoption of English in Indonesia, like maybe there's still a necessity for someone like you who is well versed in both languages to actually help to connect and maybe bring the distance between, people who are speaking different languages closer together. And normally there's this saying, right? The shortest distance between two people are stories. So if they are able to share stories, from all these Liverpool players or present and past, right? I think your audience will be even more captivated and more engaged. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate one, right? I think it benefited both ways also. I think for the community itself, I think they will love to see like all the legends or the past players kind of stuff to interact with them kind of stuff. But at the same time, like for this legend kind of stuff, I think this is the best platform for them to engage to this fan base in Asia or in Indonesia kind of stuff. I think in the past there is this kind of like the gap, like how do I reach them kind of stuff, because like other social media kind of like doesn't really allow you to do that. Like before, like you need to add these people or whatsoever kind of stuff. So this platform is kind of like perfect platform, I believe. Like you don't really need to know everyone yet. Once you gather in one place kind of stuff, and then you can just like check out the profile, and then you add these people in your followers, or you can follow them, this kind of stuff. I think that's the really, really good platform, and yeah, that's the ultimate goal. Yeah,
I think the CMOs out there, right, or the marketers, the really senior ones, they will always be wondering, which is the most underpriced platform right now to deliver a message or a campaign, right? I think Clubhouse is definitely the most underpriced in terms of its organic reach. It's just incredible to be able to like instantly talk to hundreds, if not thousands of people in one room, and being able to actually grow a following. Or in your case, right, you're able to gain so many listenership by just maybe hosting rooms there more regularly, and of course taping your show there as well. So I wish you all success for your podcast, and I love to be a part of it, to be a contributor as well. So I'm really excited to be part of the audience or part of your team on stage when you actually moderate a room for Indonesian fans who support Liverpool. So you'll be also an eye-opener for me, because for the first time ever, I'll be able to pick up some, maybe not just new terms, but also the language as well. I always love, to learn from different cultures and, of course, different languages. And I think our love for Liverpool is all the same, right? And I think it's universal as well. You never walk alone. Translate in different languages still mean the same and still means a lot more. So I think this is a great way to round up this particular session with you. Any last message for our Asian audience?
I think more just like if anyone who already in Clubhouse, just add me, like follow me in at YOKYPAN. That's my username. So yeah, we can connect, like whether it's football or like other things like music and whatsoever. I think we can just connect in Clubhouse itself.
Fantastic. So your handle on Clubhouse is Yoky Pan, right? So
yeah.
Hopefully I spelled it correctly. So everyone who's watching this, go follow Yoky Pan, and he's the host of Bersatu, Reds Bersatu podcast. And it's the first ever, I think, podcast that is doing live podcasting on Clubhouse, and also doing watch-alongs every week when Liverpool has a game. And it's the first one that's conducted entirely in Bahasa Indonesia. So everyone go check it out. And thank you so much again for coming on. Yoky, I always had a fun time to chat with you. It's like talking to a very familiar friend, and it's great to have you on. And I'll see you again in Clubhouse really, really soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Our next guest is Randy Kim. So he's someone that I grew a friendship with on, I think, Facebook. It's, again, another social platform that is doing wonders in terms of connecting people together. So without further ado, hi, Randy, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Wayne. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, a little bit muffled. Maybe if you could just bring up a volume a little bit, that would be better. But if not, it's fine.
Does it sound all right?
It sounds very distant. Is it maybe connected to your... Yeah.
I should know this actually by now, but let me go ahead and take out the headphones, see if I can go.
Sure, take your time, no worries. And because we are not strictly hearing to the timing, everyone can actually come on and off as and when they would love to. So yeah, take your time. No hurry at all. So in the meantime, maybe I'll just do an introduction for you on your behalf and tell our Asian audience and PodFest Asia community, who exactly you are and what kind of podcast show you actually do. And of course, you have a very interesting background. You are currently living in America, and you have a podcast that's called Banh Mi Chronicles. I happened to listen to one of those your episodes recently, where you interviewed a musician, and that was a really compelling listen. I really love it, and I decided to have you on this festival so that I can share more stories with us about your why in doing this particular podcast. So, are you able to? Yeah, is your mic working fine now? I think you are muted. Maybe you need to unmute yourself. Or your
Is it coming through?
Yeah, now you are perfect. Yeah, your sound is sweet right now.
I know. It's like I feel like I really should know this by now too. After doing podcasting for about over a year now, so it seems like I can never always figure it out. I think that's like the beauty of podcasting. And I also want to say that you've been. I cannot believe that you're doing this marathon right now. It's like nonstop. It seems like you're not sleeping at all this week. So I hope you get rested after this.
Yeah, but you guys are providing me the fuel to keep pushing on, and I'm almost, reaching my finishing line already. So it's great that I have your support, and you coming on to this festival means a lot to me. So, I'm going to just tell everyone about you. You're a Vietnamese American, right? So,
yes.
From the Chicagoland area. So
Yes.
Tell us about the name of your podcast, the Banh Mi Chronicles. How did it, birthed in terms of who gave you the idea to do this podcast and name it the Banh Mi Chronicles in the first place? Was it your idea, somebody else's idea, or was it because of a fan or listener request for you to create a podcast called the Banh Mi Chronicles?
So actually, I created the Banh Mi Chronicles. I named it. Actually, it was a couple years ago, before I even thought of doing a podcast, and I thought about maybe writing stories about my own experiences as like maybe a short essay book one day. And I think maybe down the road that will come about. I one day hope, but the Banh Mi Chronicles was really started. Well, there's two reasons why this name really means a lot to me. Well, the first short answer is Banh Mi means bread in Vietnamese, and it's about the idea of breaking bread, breaking banh mi with other fellow Asian American guests, and to really share stories and to share their work and to also even share some of my own stories as part of that conversation. The longer story is, growing up, I really was embarrassed about food that I would bring to school, especially being in a very predominantly white suburb and really being one of the very few Asian kids. So when I think I remember, my mom bringing in like noodles once and people were making fun of me. And I remember being so scared about what I would bring to lunch. I felt like I had to tell my mom to make me sandwiches, to make me hot dogs, anything to make it look easy and acceptable. The banh mi sandwiches were more westernized. And, if you've had a banh mi sandwich, which whether like you're in America or in Vietnam or in other places, one of the things about that food is it's very westernized, but it's also mixed in with Vietnamese culture. And I think it's kind of like a metaphor of both my own Vietnamese, Southeast Asian roots and the American assimilation that I had to work through living in America. So it was like a compromise. And I saw the banh mi sandwiches as the more acceptable part of my family's culture, especially when you're trying to look acceptable to your classmates. So I look at the Banh Mi Chronicles as like a metaphor of the Asian diaspora, the in-between that we experience being in America and also working through our own family roots. So yeah, that's the best way of putting it. And the Chronicles is more like a collection of these stories and collection of the diaspora.
This is fantastic, and I think you just piqued our interest to check out your podcast because you're such a strong, backstory of doing this particular podcast, right? So, why are you looking to break banh mi with the Asian Americans community to understand the work that they are doing for themselves, their community, and their family?
I think because when I grew up, or a lot of Asian Americans, especially those who were millennials, Generation X, and even Generation Z folks, we are not taught about Asian American history. We are not taught about the contributions that Asian American leaders and community members have made in our society. We aren't taught about the history, the suffering, the oppression that they experienced being in America or in their homeland that forced them to be in places like America or in other Western countries. And so I felt it was very important for me because growing up, I did not know Asian American community leaders like Grace Lee Boggs or Yuri Kuchiyama or Fred Korematsu, some of these folks who have really been leading the path to Asian American civil rights and also working with other Black and Brown civil rights leaders. And I think it's so valuable to have to understand our history because there's power to learning about our history. And actually, like, I think about my own brother who keeps complaining to me like, well, there's not enough people advocating for us. And I would always push back and say, well, maybe you're not seeing it from mainstream media. Maybe you're not seeing it in the classroom. But I also know, being in the Asian American spaces in Chicago, I've been learning so many of our people who are doing important work on the ground. There's organizations like Asian American Advancing Justice, as one of the examples. And there are these community leaders and members who are creating history right now as we speak. And being in part of these movement spaces, I want to capture the community members and community leaders who are doing the important work to uplift our history, to uncover our past that's not been talked about, and to present the history to our current and our future generations. There was I don't want to name this person, but there was an Asian American person who told me that she had no idea that the Chinese Exclusion Act existed. And that's very powerful because those are things that we need to know about. And this is how we have arrived to this situation in America. So I saw the Banh Mi Chronicles as really is talking to folks who have been doing that work, and how do we use that opportunity to educate, to inform our folks. And I think podcasting is so important. It's one of the several platforms that we can use because unfortunately mainstream media is not going to cover our stories. So it ends up being left to us to carry that.
Why do you think that this podcasting journey that you're embarking on will ensure that these interactions with each other, right, can become part of this history?
Well, I think podcasting, especially when you do recordings, I look at them as opportunities to archive these episodes, these conversations. I know the Vietnamese boat people just recently did their that they just archived their podcast more recently, and I keep thinking to myself, this is important. We're doing this work to capture these moments, to listen to community members. I mean, from celebrities to community organizers to regular folks who share these stories. And I think oftentimes the Asian American stories are seen through only the East Asian lens, and it's not. It's a much greater, complex, intersectional, layered, a layered amount of stories. I mean, they're so vast and very different, but yet very important. And they all bring much more to our own history that we still are just learning about. I mean, I think for us, it's important that we capture as many of these stories as possible, so that we can have a better reflection and a better accuracy of what our history means and how all of us have arrived to this country and how we are going to contribute to this country in a way that makes it harder for people in power right now to not ignore us, because I think that is I think that's very important, because for a long time we've been invisible in the media, in history books, and in government. And I think that is very detrimental to us, and also a serious disservice to us, because we have over 18 million of us living in the US as we speak. And that's a number that will only continue to grow. And it deserves the recognition, and it deserves the attention. And I think that people like us have a responsibility to make sure that we can bring it out to each of these community members who need to feel seen, who need to feel heard, and need to feel validated by their own experiences. Because when I grew up, I did not have the immediate internet access. I did not have the digital Asian American communities. I had to kind of rely on what was around me, and it was not easy to have that information. So I hope, with this technology and our own awareness of our past, that this will give us the tools to push forward and to better position our younger and current Asian American generation folks to be inspired, to take action, to be motivated, to take on new ambitions.
I think you put the spotlight on this really succinctly clear. And in terms of the importance of having a voice, and also it's really important to talk about the problem of hate and violence towards Asian American community, right? Especially with recent surge in racist attacks around the US during the COVID-19 pandemic, leaving so many communities in fear and authorities searching for ways to stop the brutality. So why is it even more important now to talk about this problem of hate and violence?
I think what I was mentioning earlier, that like the unfortunate stereotype that tends to be our own stigma is that we are invisible, that we are voiceless, that we are not seen as a community to be taken seriously at all. I think that there's serious consequences when you're seen as invisible, when you're seen as quiet and agreeable and submissive. And I think there's a lot of consequences to having that, because who will advocate for us? Who will listen to us when our community is under attack? I mean, like for mainstream media, none of this was getting attention. And actually, in fact, there was the murder of Angelo Quinto, who was a Filipino American man who was murdered last summer, when a police officer put his knee on his neck for 5 minutes, 1 month after George Floyd's murder. And we did not hear about it until this past week. And it tells you how the many examples of how our own communities harm our communities, the attacks and harm on our community continues to go unanswered and unrecognized. And that also puts our community in danger if we are not voicing this. I think that if it wasn't for Asian American news organizations like NetShark or NBC Asian America, and from podcasters to TikTokers to YouTubers, social media, the netizens of our community, we would not have mainstream media actually start to pick up on this, because unfortunately, whenever things happen to Asian Americans, it does not get reported right away. And I think what we saw with the pandemic, it took people of our age to really stand up and say, no, you're not going to keep this quiet. We are going to say something about it. And we are going to also support other movements like, Black Lives Matter and, working with other Latinx communities to show solidarity, because that's how you dismantle white supremacy. It's how you dismantle the systemic racism in this country. And by, and by really supporting our oppression, meaning ally or people who are non-Asians, no one's going to be liberated. And I think this is a very critical time for us to speak out and to give space to those who have been more hurt and marginalized.
So it's like it's even getting, or should I say, the responsibility of podcasters in terms of the adding to their plate, or maybe in terms of like the content or kind of topics they should be talking about. They should be talking about this in a very super loud way in order to ensure that his voice gets, really heard. And of course, the responsibility of podcasters seems to be, no longer just about like doing content that you like, or maybe putting a spotlight on maybe the guests that you want to feature on your show, but also to actually allow these movements to grow, and of course putting this the spotlight on this issue to come to the fore, and to be able to talk about it and discuss about it, so that people then pay attention to it. And finally, you have great leaders who are born out of these conversations. I think these responsibility of podcasters now is even more profound and deeper than people imagine, a podcaster's role could be, right? It's like redefining the role of a podcaster. Do you find that this added responsibility also gives you a burden at the same time, because you're trying to, impose, or should I say, spark off concrete actions and actually, probably start something, and that something could turn out to be something positive for the community?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. It's a very good observation that you're making, because like I did this podcast, I started this podcast back in fall 2019, obviously before the pandemic and before the civil unrest in America. But I also knew in the back of my head that like my podcast was going to talk about, issues in our community. Like in the past, I've been involved in immigration. I serve on the board for the National Cambodian Heritage Museum, which goes into refugee trauma. And so I knew in the back of my head that there were going to be several community issues that will always come up. And I think during the time of George Floyd and the pandemic, I was planning my third season, and I think this was something that was mentally draining me prior to it, like over the summer, because I really wanted to talk about the theme, which was I think the theme I can't even remember my own theme, but the third season really revolved around three things: the pandemic, the anti-Asian racism, and the anti-Black racism in our own communities. And I wanted to find guests who can talk about all three of them in a very critical, concrete way, because that's not an easy conversation to have. So I was wrestling with the kind of conversations I've had, and to be honest with you, I've had wonderful conversations with all of my guests who can really talk about it in a very thoughtful, critical way, and also in a way that makes other folks in our community understand the complexities of our issues. I mean, there's no simple solutions, but we have so many different stories from these experiences and how they all three of them are tied together. So, but yes, I do think in some ways it can be burdensome. I think when I was recording my narrative intros for my current episodes, I've started to interject more of what's been going on with the anti-Asian racism as of late. And I've also started to do my weekly video updates on Facebook and Instagram, which it was only simply to promote my own episodes, but then it started to also bring in the topics of anti-Asian racism and talking about how do we solve these issues without resorting to anti-Black racism and pro-policing solutions. So that that is something I try to interject. But yes, it can be a little tiresome and burdensome on me at times, but I also know it's so important. It's something that none of us can ignore, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. I think a great example of it was 9/11. Muslims and South Asians are still facing discrimination and hate crime 20 years later after 9/11. So I think that for something like this is not going to go away anytime soon, unfortunately. But for us, our work is not over. So there's more responsibilities to take action besides, digital media spaces, but to encourage lawmakers and to build more community solidarity and better prevention methods to make sure that our community is safe.
I think we all deal with issues in society, or like in the case of social justice, right? And to really back a movement or something along that vein, right? It always requires a lot of courage, a lot of initiative, and a lot of like this feeling that there is a cause that you can back 100%. So it's actually you can feel that passion or feel that desire through the content that you make, and also from the podcast shows that you deliver to your audience. So we also understand that it's important that while you're making a podcast show as well, that you still continue to find joy in podcasting. So this actually leads to my next question. What are your biggest joy of doing podcasting, as well as what steals the joy of podcasting for you?
Oh my gosh. I gotta say, it's a blessing talking to each of my guests. I think it's a privilege and an honor when a person, or I should say my guests, are opening up certain stories that they have not talked about in public. It's about building trust. And when I feel like I'm being trusted to handle a person's narrative, their life's work in their hands, it's powerful for me. And I think sometimes I can get tired of doing like preparing for an episode, or struggling with my editing, or trying to promote and trying to fit in my time with school and work and other extracurriculars. But what I think is so powerful is like when I'm recording an episode, and towards the end, like when I get into debrief and get to listen to it, I'm like, gosh, I can't believe I just did it. I can't believe I just had this conversation, and I can't wait to share it. And I think it's exciting to me. I mean, people can say that, oh, I wanted to make money, or I want to get in a relationship. Don't make that your priority. The priority should be, do you have curiosity to begin with to do this work? Do you have what it takes to share something with people, And I think that when I hear stories about, let's say, like one of my friends for this current episode, they talk as brother and sister about the Japanese incarceration period, and to talk about their late father and their late grandfather was so powerful for me. And just bringing it to the audience, bringing it to Facebook groups and Instagram, and seeing people's reactions to it means a lot to me, because I want their stories to be honored, and I want them to see themselves in their stories too, just like I see myself in their father's struggle. And so I certainly feel it resonates with me, but I hope that's the joy that I get, is when people are also hearing it and they can see themselves in these stories too. So yeah, absolutely.
And of course, there's many other content that we consume other than podcast shows, right? Sometimes I get really inspired when I listen to other people's podcasts. I get inspired listening to your podcast as well. Recently, when I think one of your musical guests was featured, and you told a really good story on her behalf, and you asked the right questions as well. So definitely, we want to talk about other content out there that are also inspiring for you, especially music. And I understand that you're also a big fan of Daft Punk I think
I am
in
a
the
fan.
past maybe 48 hours, right, we've been listening to tons of Daft Punk because we were all feeling so sad that they split up and they're not coming back anytime soon.
I know.
Hopefully they would, but I'm not banking on a reunion because I've seen for myself many bands split up, they don't ever reform again. So I want to
Right.
maybe get your feelings or maybe your tribute to this incredible band called Daft Punk, and then starting with the album Homework in 1996, right? Was
Oh,
that also
gosh.
the year when you discovered them?
I think I remember listening to Around the World was that song that did it for me. That was like I think 97 actually. Discovery is one of my top albums. I'm a huge Prince fan. I'm a huge Janet Jackson fan. I was a big Madonna fan up until like maybe the end of 2000s. And actually I think this is kind of, I think I just spelled out the secret, but I just booked one of our old backup dancers and who choreographed for Michael Jackson. So I'm really, really excited about that one. But yeah, Daft Punk, I would say going back to Discovery is one of my favorite albums. I can listen to that all day and every day. And I think seeing them at Lollapalooza in 2007 was quite an out-of-body experience. I mean, they don't tour to begin with, ever. And I thought maybe they're gonna do maybe just another tour because it's been years. But I think that some people are meant to be seen once or twice, and be gone. So I think like as a big concert goer myself, you just have to go. If your instinct tells you to go, then just go for it, because you never know if that artist is going to be alive around the next time. And yeah.
That's why it's so important to catch our bucket list bands, right? Before we or they kick the bucket or they split up. So
Right.
just before the pandemic started, I was kind of like traveling the world, not just because of work reason, because I just want to see all my bucket list bands, and I was able to catch some of my favorite artists in action. I think I was probably watching like 20 gigs, in half a year.
Oh,
Just
wow.
before the pandemic hit, it was like somewhat like a funny feeling that I had. Like if I don't see them now, I probably won't be able to see them ever again. Can you imagine that? And that was before the pandemic. And of course, once the pandemic started, right, everyone is missing live music now. And people are also thinking about, I should have watched that band when they came to my hometown, and got tickets and attended the show. So I think we are all feeling really sore that, we miss live music so much. So what are some of the acts or artists that you want to catch live in concert when live music is possible? Is they return again?
Yeah, actually, I was before the pandemic happened, I had gotten tickets to see Rage Against the Machine and Janet Jackson, and both, of course, got canceled. And Rage Against the Machine is an amazing band. They hadn't toured in like 12 years at that point, and unfortunately, that got canceled. Janet, I'm always a big fan of hers, and that got canceled. Other people I would really like to see, I would love to see Sade because she had never toured before. She rarely tours. And I was hoping that this would be the year, but pandemic just kind of stymied that. I'm trying to think who else would be another good one that I haven't yet seen. Grace Jones. I would love to see her. She's a rarity. She's also in her 70s too, so I hope that I get to catch her before she no longer does touring. But yeah, those are like, I guess, some of the other few people. Yeah, Bjork. That's another one too. I have not seen her. I would love to see her show, not just for her music, but her fashion and her presence and her chemistry with her musicians. I think it's it's an experience to have. So I get drawn by artists who can present things in a more unique, artistic way that goes beyond just the typical concert setting.
It's amazing that many of the bands or artists that you name drop, right, are exactly the same artists that I get inspiration from. People like Bjork, right? I think her Post album, also from 96, 97-ish, I think. It's an iconic album, and I still play that cassette tape sometimes. So, yeah, would love. I don't know what I would give, to see Bjork live in concert, and he's definitely one of my bucket list artists. So, it's great that we have you on this festival, and we are able to maybe put the spotlight on your Banh Mi Chronicles podcast and talk about issues and talk about the joy of podcasting and have a chance to connect with you. I think we all know how hard it is to get connected and how great it is when we are finally connected, right? So finally got a chance, to have you on this festival and on this replay podcast as well. So I think it'd be great if one day we can do this in person, and I'll be able to have more conversations like this with you again, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on, and best of luck to you, and hope you get some sleep too after this.
Thank you so much. I really need it, but you are the fuel that provides me and let me keep this going. So thank you again, and take care of yourself over there. Take care of everyone. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Regina, you're dialing in from your car, right?
Just like that. Can you actually hear me? Is my mic working?
It's so perfect. Actually, the
went
car
really
has
fast
the
now.
best.
Like, wow. Yeah. Hi, Wayne.
Hi. And can you maybe turn your phone this way? Does it work?
Yeah. Wait,
so that we can get you in your white screen and be able to admire your car interiors as well. Yeah, you got it.
Wait, let me see. But then I'm gonna hold it. It's gonna be fine. Is this gonna work? I try not to cover up my lens.
It looks perfect. And you look perfect. I think it's great that you're dialing in from a car. So this is absolutely live, right? So definitely not premeditated. Because I understand that you're having some renovation works at your home.
Yes, absolutely. Wait, and where's the camera? Here, I look here. My neighbor decided to do some major reconstruction. It's already going on for a while, but of course, as a podcaster, this is not the best thing that can happen next to your home recording studio. So I thought, actually, I never recorded in the car, but you know what? I have noticed that there's really awesome sound quality in the car. So I don't know how that sounds to you. Maybe I should do more recordings in my car.
I have some friends who are like architectural acoustics, specialists, and they also advise that if I really can't find a place to record my podcast show, I just do it in a car, because all this padding and all this leather cushion and the seats, right, that you have are actually pretty good for preventing the sound from leaking or coming into your car. So yes, the best acoustics design. So I think you just proved it, and I'm able to hear you crystal clear. So thank you so much for doing this and making this sacrifice. And I know that you're a producer and also the host of Impact Podcasts, so which is a podcast about stuff that matters, right? Tell us exactly where you're based in and what are the passion, stories or backstories of why you are doing this podcast. Who gave you the idea to do this podcast? Was it somebody else, or was it your client, or maybe a family member?
So I started #Impact Podcast here in Hong Kong, where I am based for the last couple of years, from my tiny bedroom. Yeah, another tiny space. Today I'm in my tiny car. Back then I was in my tiny bedroom. And it really started with me wanting to share stories that I felt inspired by, that other people can feel inspired by. And also it was me really in a career transition as well at that time. Me and my husband had recently moved to Hong Kong, and I thought if I would do like a podcast interview show. Wayne, are you still here? Did I lose you? Is he gone? Yeah, I'm just gonna we'll keep talking, right?
I'm back. Please continue. Sorry. I accidentally clicked leave studio. So sorry for that. Yeah. Sorry
don't worry about that. I keep the show going. There's not much that can surprise me anymore in podcasting, but yeah, that actually did surprise me. So I thought podcasting would be a really great way. I love the medium. I love audio. I think it's the best way to connect and build an audience. Such an intimate way to speak to build your tribe, really, and your community. So there's the passion for the medium I had, but there's also passion for people that I have, and especially people that are trying to make the world a better place. And I want to feel inspired by them. So that's what I did back then in 2016 when I started my research. I checked out who are some like really cool NGO leaders here in Hong Kong who are running like great social enterprises. And then I went out and I met up with them and I asked them to share their story with me. And what started with me doing that has now in the past couple of years grown into a community and several co-hosts that are part of #Impact Podcast that are now recording in the same format as I do, with doing these interview shows with people that inspire them in cities where they are based. So we have guest hosts and co-hosts in Berlin, in New York, in Honolulu, in Sydney, and did I forget someone? I always forget the countries. But I hope my vision for #Impact is that there would be even more people joining and sharing their stories that we feel that deserve to get heard.
I think it's quite an achievement and quite a feat, to be ranked in the top 10% of almost like 2 million podcasts now globally. And I think we're going to add another 1 million podcast shows this year because of Clubhouse. And we're definitely going to be talking about Clubhouse later on. And I think you also host another show called Off the Record, right? Which is about podcasting with impact,
Yes.
as well as a zero waste journey podcast. So so prolific. You have so many shows, and you also recently named one of the top 10 women who are shaping Hong Kong for the better. So, having all these platforms, all these medium to do your work and to continue to see action and connecting people, right? How do you actually juggle so many, plates? You have so many things going on at the same time.
Yeah, I asked that myself as well. I also had like 3 children while doing my podcast.
Wow.
So it's a little bit, how should I say? I'm driven by the passion for the causes that I feature on the show. And I'm also driven by the vision that I have for this. And I love what I'm doing. So if I could, I would, I think, start another 5 shows just this year. I have so many ideas what I want to do. And whenever it all comes, I think, for a lot of podcasters, it is like that. And I've been listening into the other amazing podcasters that you're bringing together here. I think we all come in it with our personal stories and our lives and the challenges that life throws at us. And of course, when, for example, I became a mom, this was a whole new thing for me. So I think that would actually deserve another show that I should also run at some point, Parenting with Impact. Yeah, coming to you soon, maybe. But right now I focus on keeping #Impact going with these stories, and also Off the Record, Podcasting with Impact. I'm happy you bring that up. It's actually the first season launched last year. And in the first season, I share all about my epic fails when it comes to starting my own show. Because I think there's a lot of, when I'm now working with new podcasters that I'm also teaching how to podcast, especially in the beginning, everyone is really worried about making these mistakes. So I just try to normalize it in a way to say, everyone makes these mistakes. And looking back, you're going to laugh at it. It's not going to feel funny in the moment. But as I do now, trying to laugh at it. And for season 2 that I'm working on for Off the Record, I want to bring in other podcasters as well to share about their epic fails. So Wayne, any big epic fails? Yeah, I mean, there's so many, right? Along the way, of course, we make mistakes.
Exactly. I think I love to hear entrepreneurs. I love to hear podcasters and retell their failure stories, because those are real stories that we can learn from. And the more that they share about their vulnerabilities as well, right? I think that's where it gets really authentic. And then we can actually, be part of that conversation as well. Because when people show their authentic best selves, right, that's where real conversation gets going. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, I always see this happening, that the moments, that's the stories that people want to hear as well. Like the feedback I'm getting for my shows, it's always the episodes where people feel these are like really honest stories. Like you uncover everything and you take off all the layers, and we all try to create and curate a story about ourselves. I think it's natural. We want people to also feel inspired by us and not maybe see right away all our little, tics and things that maybe make us a bit weird or what we think we're not so good at. But when we step into the things that we are not so good at and let other people be part of the journey, that's where magic really happens. And I mean, let's look at one of the podcast stars and people that a lot of people always quote with Gimlet and their startup podcast. I mean, that was exactly that. That's what made them really popular, that they shared their startup story in such a raw, awesome way. And I mean, now look where they took their little podcast, right? Yeah. So
that's a really great case in point.
Really good. Yeah.
I was about to ask you about some of your superhero stories. Who are some of your podcast superheroes? So you just mentioned one. Maybe can you elaborate a little bit more about what ignited your passion for podcasting?
For me, the passion for podcasting starts before podcasts were a thing, because my passion starts when I was a kid. I loved radio. I loved listening to audio cassettes. I would always love to listen to my favorite stories. I would listen to them over and over again. And what I now realize when I'm myself producing audio, and what I also try to bring into my conversations as well. Nowadays, not so much, because COVID also restricted me from going to on-site recordings. But what I loved as a kid about these audio stories was that it wasn't just someone telling a story. There were also there was this sound engineering around it. So if there was a story about an elephant walking around a pond, and there were a lot of frogs in the pond, and then the frogs started to disappear. It's one of my favorite stories, Benjamin Blümchen. Check it out. He's a pretty cool elephant. But you heard the frogs and you heard the water, and it's, all of a sudden you are there. You are right there in your imagination, like you're feeling it with your whole body. And that's what I think is the magic that audio brings. So I think I actually wonder, why haven't I started podcasting earlier? Why have I only discovered this? And I discovered podcasts when I got my first iPhone, and I'm a super late adapter. My husband always laughs about me because I think I had my first smartphone 5 years after everyone had theirs. But then once I did, I think the biggest impact having a smartphone had on me was that I discovered this weird purple app on my phone called Podcasts. And from then on, I could not stop. Wow, now I have all my favorite shows. In a click, I can discover so many shows. So as a listener, my podcasting journey begins maybe, I don't know when was that. When was that? I'm bad with numbers as well. But I definitely started my journey into podcasting as a fanatic podcast listener and audio fan. And listening to other podcasts, at some point, I also asked myself, can anyone just upload their podcast? In the beginning, I thought, coming from that perspective of growing up with radio, I thought these are official radio stations that are just putting up their radio shows also as a podcast. That's how I started listening to podcasts, with, BBC Radio and my Austrian radio stations. And then I realized, but there are all these other, just indie podcasters. How do they do that? And that's when I started looking into it.
So did you have to hustle, to start podcasting, or did you have to give up a high-paying job or career to do what you love?
I didn't actually, because at that time anyway, I was, we just relocated. At that point, we relocated for my husband's job. So this was a time for me anyway, where I had to start something new from scratch. But I did have the opportunity to continue working with the organization I had worked with in mainland China, where we lived before that. But that was a conscious decision for me at that point. I had, I think for everyone, you come to a stage in your life if you have done a certain job for a number of years. So for me, that had been I was 5 years in that social impact industry, working for this think tank doing research work. And I thought, it's time for something new. And that's when I started exploring. But Wayne, for me, what came as a surprise was that I didn't see it coming, what this podcast would turn into for me, because I thought I'd just start this as a passion project. to network and meet really great people and learn how to podcast. That's great. But now I started a business around that. I teach other people how to podcast. I run mentorship programs. I sell online courses. I run events when it's possible again, then this is something that came really a bit by surprise to me, or I kind of like stumbled in that, or like working with sponsors now that my show is growing as well. But I'm so happy it happened. A little bit by chance, but of course with a lot of hard work. I mean, I was really hustling, and especially at the times when I had my new babies, I always wanted to make sure that the podcast would keep up and running. The flagship production, #Impact, I never wanted to pause it. So, and I never did. I reduced the publishing schedule to make room for my new family members, but I never gave up on showing up for the audience. And I think that really pays off now.
That's a fantastic story. And the next question I'm going to ask you is a question that I ask every keynote speaker who comes on the festival, because I love to hear different perspectives, right? From those who are doing podcasting mentorship, like what you're doing, those who produce podcasts, those who have their own shows, from the chart toppers to the independents, right? So I want to hear your thoughts in terms of how do creatives, how do podcasters actually make their podcasts better?
They make it better by keep doing it. It's as simple as that. So there are actually two ways to do that. Yeah, you keep showing up even if sometimes you don't feel like it, and you think, maybe I should just skip it. Let's skip this episode. Let's skip it. And it's really easy to then fall into this trap of, then what's that word? Pot fading, that you're fading away and that you won't show up anymore. So that's also what I did. There are certain days when I feel where I then doubted myself. Not so much anymore when it comes to the podcast, but definitely in the first year, there were moments where I thought like, wow, is this really worth it? Like, where is this going? I'm spending so much time with this. But what I then realized is that, that the audience you're building is almost just like a bonus. The relationships you're building with your guests, if you're doing an interview show, is also an amazing bonus. If you have sponsors on your show at some point, it's a great bonus. But the value of and the benefit of keeping showing up for it is the way you develop. You as a person, as a communicator, as a storyteller, you're constantly improving because you're showing up for it. So that's that part, what I think is very important to just keep doing. And the second part is to also really surround yourself with a lot of inspiration from other podcasters. I listen to so many podcasts. Like every week, I think I discover 10 new shows. I cannot listen to all of them in detail, and I'm not following all of them forever. Of course, I have like my maybe 5 favorites I listen to really regularly every week. But then, like just this morning, I discovered this amazing podcast where they are recording animal sounds to create awareness for wildlife protection. And they did it in such a beautiful way, the way they narrated the story. And then there was a little thing in the podcast where they, how you podcasters often like take breaks and like, okay, we're coming back after the break. And then usually in the podcast, there is a little promo from their sponsor, or they're giving a shout out to someone else. But what they did, and what I definitely, I again learned something as a podcaster from someone else doing it. They took a break to promote their own podcast. So they said, thank you for tuning in to our show. This is our series on wildlife protection. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite channel. And I thought that was, yeah, actually, why don't we promote our own podcasts within our podcast to remind our listeners to hit the subscribe button in the mid-roll where it's so impactful, where everyone's really in the story and listening, right? So that's what you do. I think that's the trick. And it doesn't really cost you anything except time. And time, of course, is valuable. But if you're doing this, if you're integrating this in your days, things, chores that you have to do anyway, I don't know, doing, picking up kids from school, being on a long drive, the commute to work can be so boring, right? I mean, just getting stuck in the MTR, a million people is so crowded and annoying. But why not use that time to learn something new from another podcaster? What do you think
mentioned
about that, Wayne?
some of your favorite podcast shows, right? And you're hungry for new podcast content to inspire you as well. So what are your favorite podcasts that are available that help you improve your knowledge, your skills in podcasting, and also to grow your passion for podcasting, or simply just be entertained? Can you name us like maybe 3?
Yeah, so one of my favorite ones that I find where I'm a great fan of the host and how she's leading conversations is the On Being podcast from Krista Tippett. So it has a lot of, they talk a lot about spirituality, and she's just a really, really talented host. Another one is one that maybe German-speaking people will enjoy as well. It's in my native language, Austrian German, and that one is called Frühstück bei mir. And that's one that I fell in love with as a kid already. And then a third one would really be, which would be a third one I could recommend now? You know, I really like these podcasts where you, especially now when I'm building my business, where you can learn some tricks about online marketing and all this. And for me as a female entrepreneur, I love listening to a female voice as well. And I can give a shout out to Amel from Tandem Nomads podcast because I really enjoy her show, and I learn a lot about how I can become better at online marketing as well. She's a great host too.
Great recommendations. And you mentioned about Austria a couple of times already. I'm heading to Vienna in November to catch a concert by my bucket list band, Meshuga. So just want to ask you, are you heading back to Vienna anytime soon?
Oh, my family would wish for that. Yeah. I feel we're a little bit stuck here now because they have this heavy quarantine here in Hong Kong nowadays, currently 3 weeks. And it's just traveling with 3 small children in these times is just, it seems almost impossible. We're really hoping for a reunion this year because we really miss our family and we want to see them. And they want to meet the newest addition to our family. They haven't met even their grandson yet. It's sad, yeah. But yeah, nowadays just doesn't really work. I'm happy for you to hear that you're taking on the journey. Yeah, fingers crossed.
It's something that I really miss because live concert, especially music, is in my blood. Same as podcasting. So the moment when the borders, they reopen, right, it's safe to travel, I'm out again, going to see all my bucket list bands. So, before we let you go, right, we definitely have to ask you a few more questions about podcasting and also the thing that you love. And one of the things about podcasting is that there's so much rapid changes, right? So much rapid development, not just in terms of the gear that we are seeing, like new tech that's been added, or even in the form of advertisements as well. There's so much progression in terms of how ad tech tools has helped, brand advertisers to precision target the listeners and through all these shows that are available right now. And it's like the next Google Ad Manager for podcasting is actually already available, and it's something that in the ad tech world, right, there's so much great work being done there as well. And of course, even podcasters, right, we are seeing action in different ways. We are recording, taping our shows in different ways. The question that I'm going to ask you is, are you on Clubhouse?
I am. Find me, Regina Larko. Yeah.
How much do you love it? How much are you addicted to it? And are you further down the rabbit hole already, or you are still you curb your amount of time that you spend there, and you refuse to go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I went into the rabbit hole, I think, for the first 2 weeks when I was a new member and just trying to figure all this out. And as a podcaster, of course, I'm extremely excited about the audio-based conversations, and it's really exciting to see where this will go. But I have limited time resources, and I'm really restricting myself there because otherwise I could jump in and out of rooms all the time. But that's also, I think, a little bit the challenge for Clubhouse. I think maybe moving forward, or what I see is that, the live format is amazing, but at the same time challenging, because it's live, it's raw, but how do you make sure that you then reach the people during the times when they have time? So I missed a bunch of I think really interesting rooms just because I couldn't join that time, and then I wished, like, is there a replay? Can I listen to this then as a podcast later on when I am available? So maybe they will change that up in the future, and there will be a recording function and all that as well. But what I really find super, super amazing about it is that a lot of people are getting into the audio, and now we don't have to explain it anymore. I think I had to, when I started my podcast, I had to explain to so many people about what is it about? Why would you listen to something and don't want to see a video? Wouldn't you want to have some video as well? But now with Clubhouse, I think more people just get to experience the power of it, how you feel connected to a person, even just by 2 sentences they said, because you hear their voice and you hear how they say it. So let's see. Yeah. Do you
think
that
this speculation or this saying that there will be 1 million new shows, right, this year alone, as a result of so many podcast shows that are birthed right out of Clubhouse? Do you agree with that statement? Because I think a year ago, Anchor has actually proven that, with an easy to record app and an easy way to distribute your podcast across Google, Spotify, and Apple, right? They can actually grow the number of podcast shows, and it's proven that 1 million shows were added as a result of Anchor, doing great things with your app. So do you think that Clubhouse is going to have the same impact of adding 1 million more shows to this portalscape?
I wouldn't put my hand down for a certain number. It will definitely add to people being more excited about it and trying it out. But what I see is, like, it's so easy to start a podcast nowadays, but who is going to keep it going? Maybe there are going to be 1 million shows added, but then a year on, are these still going to be active? Are people actually then showing up and bringing content? Because of course, if you record something live, there's not, I don't even want to say there is not as much preparation, because there is. I mean, look at what you have to do to get ready, to read bios, to schedule meetings, times, it takes time. And if you want quality, then you will have to spend that time, and you will have to make it a priority, or you have to make a strategic decision to make it part of your business. And I think more people should do that. I think it's totally still, I can't believe that most even the big Fortune 500 don't have their own podcast. Why don't they? I think that should be a priority for them if they want to connect with the audience. I think there's still a lot to leverage for them. But it excites me for the indie podcasters that are also having the opportunity to get out and share their voice. And if people like, Obama and Springsteen start their podcast like recently, and these people where that put the spotlight on the industry, of course, that will also impact people wanting to have their own podcast too. Yeah, because, just because Regina and Wayne have their podcast maybe doesn't make it as exciting just yet, as when you hear, wow, Obama has his own podcast, Michelle Obama has her own podcast. So they, of course that helps Clubhouse as well, because isn't this what made it so exciting to kick it off, because you had this exclusivity of all this like more high profile people being on there.
Yeah, very good point. I think you highlighted some really valid points there. So we, really appreciate you for agreeing to do this on Podcast Asia, sharing with us your story, sharing with us your great hashtag Impact Podcasts. And of course, you have so many other shows that we should check out. Any recommended episodes that you think that our audiences will be very keen, and those episodes will really resonate with us?
When it comes to podcasting, you mean?
Yeah. Which one of the episodes do you recommend to us?
If you head over to Off the Record podcast, and you find that at #impact.com/offtherecord, you find all the links there to your favorite player. There's one episode that's called How to Be a Great Host, how to be a great podcast host. And I share some tips there, what I think makes a great host. And I will share a little bit more even on LinkedIn. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I also prepared like a mini video that I will share soon about some tricks how to become better at podcasting. Yeah.
Fantastic. Make sure you tag me so that I can reshare it to our audience as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for allowing us to borrow your wisdom and to share your story as well. We hope to see you again. Probably you won't, we'll be meeting me, in Vienna, but hopefully next time when I come to Hong Kong, we can maybe have dim sum dinner together. Yeah.
Yes, please let me know. And thank you so much for what you are doing here for the community as well, bringing people in Asia together. I'm so excited to connect with the other podcasters as well that you've been introducing here, and will keep doing so moving
Thank
forward.
you so much, Regina.
Thank
you
you
so much. Yeah.
Bye.
So take care of yourself over there and send my regards to your children and your family. Yeah.
We'll do that. Bye.
Bye-bye. That's Regina Larko, producer, host of #Impact Podcast. So the time now is 1:30, and it's time for me to bring on board my two co-conspirators for our next project. It's a Clubhouse Drama Club project, and I'm so glad to have them on the festival as well, and using this platform as a way to launch this project and introduce themselves. So it's great to have Edric and Anna. How are you guys?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hey, Wayne, how's everything, man?
Feeling very tired. Feeling really tired. And
I'm sure you are.
That you're providing me the fuel to keep going. So thank you for coming on. And how's the day so far? Maybe starting with Anna. Yeah, below. Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, I had the session this morning, running I ran a workshop on how to do mindful connection. So I am very much invigorated right now.
Fantastic. Edric?
Man, it's as it is, we're juggling work as well as all our other passion projects as we go along. So yeah, just getting everything organized, getting everything in order, very much as practicing what I'm preaching on the podcast, of course.
Fantastic. So let's talk about this Clubhouse Drama Club, right? Because it's something that I think is a passion project. It's definitely a passion project because it happens spontaneously. I think anything that happens spontaneously has to be a passion project. So maybe tell our audience, right, in Podfest Asia, who hasn't got the chance to be able to attend our live reading sessions yet, what they can expect from this Clubhouse Drama Club.
Okay, so just to give you a quick backstory on how it happened, right? So essentially, it just happened watching an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? The improv show. It's great, right? So they've got this little film noir kind of a session, and the music kind of hit. And all of a sudden, just images started flooding my mind as I'm listening to the soundtrack. And then the story just unfolds, and I began writing. And this happened 5 years ago, and I never thought we would ever do a live reading. I thought it was just going to be a recording only and put it out there. Hopefully somebody will come across. And then came you, Mr. Wayne Chong, us having coffee and saying, hey, dude, we should do this. You should do this and we should do this. And why not do it live? And it's fun because that's how it was done on radio. Exactly like what we were talking about, the 1940s radio stories. We have to be able to do it. And what better platform to try it out on Clubhouse? So all of a sudden you're like going, hey, how many people do you have? What is this and that? And I'm like, okay, look, I know somebody because she came onto my podcast. All right. And a week after that, immediately we hit it off, called her. I said, hey, Anna, you got to do this. And all of a sudden, look at that lady right there. She's the one doing, and she'll be the one voicing as well in that story. So what's going to be really cool is that we are going to be having episodes pretty much each time. Hopefully, within a couple of episodes, the story unfolds and ends, and it will always have a new story. And this becomes an ongoing writing, creative project that anybody can then start joining us to voice, to write. I just see this as a great community to build up.
This is great. And of course, you're the one of the brains behind this project. So we definitely have to give you credit. Don't give me too much credit. I only kind of like just give you the impetus to start doing it in a different format on Clubhouse. But you're the one who provided a script, right? You're the one who actually came up and bring people together. So I think we should give you full plaudits for that. And Anna, I think you have a very interesting story as well. You're ex-banker turned improviser and storyteller and founder of What's Your Story, huh? WYSH, which is a consultancy based in Singapore and Washington, D.C. that provides coaching, consulting, corporate training using storytelling and improvisation comedy techniques. So I have so much to learn from you guys. You guys are the pros. Can you maybe just tell me, how can we actually make drama better?
Well, I think it's about building on each other's ideas and to make drama better, and also trying to get inspiration from our own personal lives, like, getting ideas from either something we've seen or we've experienced or something we wish would have happened. And I think that's the magic what Edric is doing with his drama, is that through the voice, we can then paint a movie in our audience's mind. So like the film noir can be like, the characters, through the picture to the voice, they can picture a different looking character each time. So it's not like a set view. Kind of like when we read Harry Potter, it's so much more interesting in our head than watching the movie.
That's right. That really resonates. I think that you are doing something similar with your What's Your Story Slam, right? Which is also completely done live. It's a live storytelling show in Singapore. Tell us, the story behind that. Who gave you the idea of doing What's Your Story Slam? And was it your idea, somebody else's idea, or was it one of your clients' idea that pushed you to do this?
So when I was living in the US, I was performing in story slams. Like I was competing as a storyteller, and there's something magical about going up on stage and sharing your personal story where you're seen and heard. And when I came back here to Singapore, I was looking for a place to do that, but there wasn't any place to tell stories. There were open mic nights, but mostly for stand-up comedy, and the audience is slightly different. So when you tell stories at a stand-up group, it kind of falls flat because they don't know what to expect. Like, okay, that's kind of slow. It's nice, but there's no joke. Where's the funny in it? So one of my friends, I was complaining to him about it. So he told me, well, why don't you just start your own show? And so I figured, how hard could it be? And that's how I started What's Your Story Slam. And we are on our third year now. So we started in July 2019. So we're turning, I guess, in July we'll be 2 years old. So still going on. We went virtual for a while, and now we're a hybrid show, doing it live at the projector for a smaller audience and broadcasting it online as well for our Zoom audience.
This is fantastic. So back to you again, Edric. I understand you're the producer and host of this self-titled podcast called Edric Poon in Company, right? Short for Epic. And this is a podcast with entrepreneurs in Singapore, Asia, and the world. So tell us some of the incredible stories that you're telling on that particular podcast show, and who are some of the biggest guests so far that you have hosted or guested?
Okay, so very much like what a couple of wise people have said, when you zig, or at least when somebody zigs, you zag, in that sense. And I've always been doing that for, since the beginning of time, actually. I'm not looking for the biggest names, the sexiest names, the hottest people out there, but what I want to feature is really the everyday hero, the person who works his or her butt off to get to where that person is today. And that's what the Epic podcast is all about, really. I mean, we've got the CEO of Workmate. I've got the CEO of, I think it was Omni, a huge pay channel, a huge pay platform growing in Costa Rica, right? Then we've also got quite a number of others entrepreneurs, some founders of charities, some are photographers, some were just starting out their own businesses in children's education using design thinking. So it's a really wide range, but ultimately, right, what it's all about is about learning these little gems and nuggets of how we can improve in whether or not we're a professional, we're a freelancer, or anything. It just makes us better. So organizing your day, getting started, dreaming big, or achieving small wins along the way. It's all about your perspective and how you're gonna basically, pardon my French, but get shit done today. That's the idea. So that's what the Epic podcast is all about.
I love the concept of your podcast. I love that you're putting the spotlight on the average Joes and Janes, right? And you're not like chasing clout. Like so many podcasters out there are doing these days. They're always chasing for the biggest name, and you ended up that every podcast show they're interviewing the same people. So we want to hear more stories, more interviews, more diversity, more different people that we don't get to hear every day. So I really applaud you for doing your show, Epic. And of course, I want to ask you the next question as well. Can you tell us some of your superhero stories? Who are your podcast superheroes? What ignited your passion about podcasting?
Okay. First podcast, of course, very similar to you, was Joe Rogan, of course. The JRE was one of the first few I listened to, after which, it's always been a love for the audio craft. It's really an art form. Editing, the content writing, the performance aspect of things. At the same time, mic skills and dynamics, from pro wrestling to theater and drama to voiceover artists and cartoons. So it all began from that, and so the first few podcasts, of course, was the JRE, after which then I started listening to people like Nas Daily, and then you've got Gary V's vlogs and all, and of course, people like Tony Robbins also come into play, whereby you hear the power come through the audio, closing your eyes and you feel that energy just coming through. I think that's a beautiful thing that we can do, and it's really a platform and an art form that we can share and express very, very freely on podcasts. So that's really the beauty of where it all comes from.
How about Anna? Would you like to chime in as well?
Well, I thought about doing, so my experience with podcasts is normally as being interviewed, and that's how Edric and I met, was when he was interviewing me for a podcast, and I spun it around by asking him, well, why don't you also tell a story at my show? So now I got him to tell a story. I've always been curious I thought about doing my own podcast as well, but I'm still learning. But I do love listening to podcasts, especially about storytelling. Podcasts such as like the Moth Story District, also like the one Modern Love by New York Times, because there is something about like just like listening to someone tell you a story, and then it paints a movie in your mind. It's like you just you close your eyes and let your imagination take you to another world, and you get lost in someone's story. And I think that's one of the beauties of podcasts.
This is brilliant. And of course, we love fiction podcasts, and there's just not enough of that, especially in this part of the world, right? It seems that there's so many live interview podcasts or Q&A podcasts, but not enough fiction ones. So do you think that with this Clubhouse Drama Club, we are able to fill the gap?
Yes. I think it would be interesting to bring it back, because I remember as a kid, I would listen to some of these like radio drama podcasts, not really by choice, right? I was a kid, somebody else's choice, but it was fascinating to see like how you could really picture something happening. We got spoiled by TV. I think this would be a very interesting, I would say, social project, social experiment, to see we can bring these kind of like old school back. Edric's got a great script, and we got to joking how I got into it, because I go, well, I always wanted to play the femme fatale in a film noir, because we do improv noir. There's an film noir genre and improv as well, which I really liked.
Fantastic. And how about you, Edric?
Well, on my end, look, this is a project that it was really 5 years in the making. I won't say that the script is super, super awesome. I think that it's the first time that it will be published. It's the first time that we're going to be doing a live reading, right? At the same time, there's no better feedback that you can get from such a live reading. And that forces you to improve in how you speak, how you express, how you interpret. And, I just see this as a fantastic opportunity to open up to the community, and eventually we're going to have live reads. And you never know, this could become a platform for actors who are in training, for example, and they need to practice live reads. What better opportunity than to just hit us up and go, hey, can I be part of your next project? I need to practice. I'm like, cool, let's do it. I'll be more than happy to just get anybody who wants to give their voice and think that they have a suitable contribution, to this whole project, and most importantly, have fun and express themselves.
So you actually had the script, especially the first 3 episodes, right, wrapped up like 5 years ago. But how did it take so long for it to come to fruition? And was it because Clubhouse came like only 5 years later that actually started the whole thing to actually see some action and actually bring your script to life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a platform like because you see, if we wanted to do an audio drama, just say last year, you had SoundCloud, you've got Spotify, then you've got YouTube just purely for audio, and you've got all the other syndicated streaming, music streaming. But again, then you're kind of shrouded among all the content that is available. But now on Clubhouse, on the other hand, people are able to just drop in and really listen to it. It's so different because like back then when you had a couple of channels just to watch, for example, back then on TV, or you just had to scan through the radios. For those who are old enough, we would understand how that works, right? Tuning the FMs. But it's so much more fun to chance upon it, the excitement of just going, hey, I think I like this. But whereas on these other platforms, you're clicking and you're clicking and you're clicking, you're scrolling and you're scrolling, the experience is lost. The experience to discover is no longer there, because now discovery is just basically click. Oh, hey, discover, this is what I'm planning for you. That's what the platforms are doing. But Clubhouse is not like that. So now we have that feel again, you see, and I think this is a great platform for us to do it.
And since we're on the subject of passion project, right? Maybe Anna, can you tell us some of the other passion projects you have embarked on, and what eventually came out of it? Do you actually measure, passion projects based on the ROI of happiness, or do you measure it based on did it actually spin off to something even more incredible? Or even like, you're able to benefit from it through the network or the authority that they build? Or was it like through some financial gain that you actually use to measure all these passion projects?
I think the passion project will probably be more for me in terms of happiness and satisfaction. My biggest passion project definitely is What's Your Story Slam. When I started it, it was a social experiment. It was supposed to be a one-off, kind of like the radio drama when we were playing with it for episode 1. It was an experiment just to see. But I saw how people started loving it. So like when we first started in 2019, we had like 80 people, and everybody in the audience were people who knew me personally, professionally. So people just wanted to see what is it that I'm up to. But during the show, they were telling me how much they loved it, how they resonated with everyone's messages, because these are people's true stories that I was inspired to do show after show. So every 2 months I was producing shows that we got to the point where we had like 160 people. We were going to prepare ourselves to the biggest show that we're going to have, 400 people. Then COVID happened. So had to pivot, move virtually. Now we're back on stage again. So we're continue to trying hard. So like it's gotten like I've been invited to tell stories. What's nice about the COVID thing with all the virtual events, I've been invited to perform in various virtual stages around the world, Australia, definitely the United States. And I have storytellers coming in from different parts of the world, Europe, US, Canada, Australia, coming in to tell stories at my show as well when it was virtual, and also now that it's hybrid. So it's getting there. And people will occasionally drop me messages on LinkedIn and saying how this passion project of mine has resonated with them, and how they resonate with stories and about following your passion. But my next one I'm doing is I'm going to do a solo show at some point. I'm working on doing a one-woman show.
Wow, that would be something to really look forward to. And I think we need more female hosts of podcast shows, female hosts of also content creators like you, right, who are really crushing it in the field that you're in right now and doing drama as well. So a solo show seems to be like, there isn't, really many people who are doing that right at this moment. Maybe Edric, can you maybe educate me on how many women are actually doing like solo shows at this moment, especially in the podcasting realm?
Wow, that's a really tough question out there. But I would say that, of course, the number has been growing, in the last couple of years. I mean, just take a look at the stand-up scene, the comedy scene, right? Of course, you've got so many other ladies who are coming out. Back then, it was just Joan Rivers, right? I mean, this was, decades ago. But now, of course, you've got, people like Sarah Silverman, and you've got the, who is that other lady who's just a couple of other Asian American ladies who have also made it, and
Ali Wong.
Ali Wong. So there more and more, and plus because of Netflix investing a little bit more into the Asian comedy side. So Singaporeans, Malaysians, Indian comedians are now getting a lot more, I would say, traction as well, a lot more visibility, and the ladies as well. They're coming up and really getting their content. Just their jokes are just really great. So I have all the respect in the world for anybody who can stand up there and really tell jokes that are so good and so refined, about their lives, their stories, right, and making it feel like we're a part of it too.
And we always feel that we are part of, the celebration when we see our fellow Asian peers, right? Doing really well or getting their own Netflix show. I think Ronnie Chung today, I think just announced that Netflix gave him like a 3-season deal for a new show that he's doing. So he grew up from the stand-up, that theater and stage production scene, right? And now he's a Netflix star and having his own show on Netflix. Do you think that, it's a natural progression? It's also a dream of yours to one day maybe have your drama adapted for Netflix or one of those Disney Plus, Apple Plus, so many OTTs out there. And like progression from podcasts and then becoming a Netflix star. Is that something that you dream of, Anna?
Well, I definitely want to be on Netflix. I always imagined my show would eventually get there. So, putting it out there, if anyone from Netflix or Disney Plus is listening, I'm open.
Fantastic. How about Edric? If you see your script come to life, right? Something that you wrote in your own backyard, and suddenly one day you see it being acted out by real actors, Hollywood actors, and it's been streamed into your living room on Netflix, how would you feel?
I'd feel very strange because I'd be questioning these A-list actors' life choices. Why would they choose something like this, right? But more importantly, honestly speaking, I never really dreamed of anything like that at all. More importantly, I think it's just about getting people involved and being able to make that connection. So whichever platform or whichever channel, if it ever gets taken up, for example, yeah, that's great. But most importantly is the end goal is really to have that impact and that connection with people.
I think there's one room that I was in recently. I think it was co-moderated by this Cannes Film Award, or was it Palme d'Or award winner? The one who actually directed Ilo Ilo. This Singaporean film, right? I think it was Anything Chen. Yeah, he was actually recounting his experience dealing and interfacing with the likes of Netflix, right? To actually get your own show is actually, it's really difficult. First of all, you have to, compete and basically arm wrest, your way through against the likes of all these Hollywood, all these established big studios, right? Who are already churning out great content. They already have great strips. Why do they need, another Asian to contribute to that competition, right? And he was saying that Netflix is one of those platforms who are always, looking to maybe bring all these content creators and their work over onto their platform because, they just want to grow with and to scale with more content that are more diverse. And one of the things that maybe we should be more, should I say, be careful in terms of treading carefully when interfacing with all these platforms, right, is that sometimes they might undersell or maybe under offer all these Asian content creators. Like, I think he recounted a story whereby some of his films were actually, only offer like $1,000. And that is like $1,000 for a film of the caliber of Anthony Chen, for example, where he put so much blood, sweat, and tears, right? And in terms of like $1,000 doesn't even pay for the lens that he shot a film on, right? And of course, there's a stage production. A film production requires a mammoth, number of crew members and so many hours, to make that film, high quality. And if the likes of Netflix just come in and say that we are providing you more access, more reach, we optimize your audience for you so that you have more opportunities to get this film distributed across more territories. Is that something that, you will consider if one day maybe, Edric, one of your script get adapted, but instead of like thinking that this will be a huge payday for you, like finally all your years of grinding is paying off, right? But you're only going to get either like $1,000 as a return. Is that something that you frown upon, or do you think that you will still continue to embrace that concept?
Wow, that's a tough question because again, it depends on, of course, your situation. But let's just assuming that it happens tomorrow, for example, right? Are we gonna go, Sylvester Stallone and on his Rocky Balboa script and say, oh no, I'm not gonna sell you the script. I have to act in it, right? Or is it something that we would actually say, just take it and go? But at the end of the day, what you're asking me, right, it's very much like when artists, is that whole question of when do you actually so-called sell out? So it's a very scary term to use, when you do sell out. But at the end of the day, if you got to make a living and you see value in it, of course, $1,000 with all that, short answer is nah, not for $1,000. Nah.
How about you, Anna?
Do I get to host in it? Because I think for me, if it's going to happen, I have to be in it, because my goal for What's Your Story Slam is to inspire people to share their story. So it's not that I have original content. I use, like, say for you, if you're going to tell a story at my show, I'm going to ping you that for that too. I want you to share your story. So it's everybody's I'm not building content. I'm providing a platform, and my goal for the platform is to inspire others that you don't have to have anything major, dramatic happen to your life to be able to tell a story. Just by being yourself, you have a story. So for me, yeah, as long as I'm in it, because I think my vision is dependent on for the show to go on. It's not like giving the name of my show or the concept. I want to be involved with the production of it.
I think that nowadays content creators, we have more power, right? Especially not just content creator types, right? They are also like entrepreneurs. They are also business people, and they are also looking at this as a way for them to deliver a new product or introduce a new way of consuming content. Like what you're doing, right? You're providing another solution to how content can be created by providing a platform and giving other people more chances to tell their stories. So you're bringing more to the table, and it's not just one content they're offering. And of course, that can be quantified in tangible terms, in terms of dollar value. But in terms of like a relationship with all these OTT, they're all like trying to get our subscription money, right? Like I think Disney Plus is, if I'm not wrong, $11 or $12 a month. That seems little. But if the payout to the artist or the people that is responsible for all this great content is peanuts, we have to start questioning, are they, really serving, this industry of content creators who are working so hard, grinding behind the scenes? Are they being paid, fairly? And it's a question that we can actually ask that questions ourselves, because if we say no to these platforms, right? End of the day, our content actually make their platforms great. Without our content, they can't really, be valued at billions of dollars. And like Clubhouse as an example, for example, if all of us decided not to do our live taping of our podcast or our drama series on their platform and decide to maybe create our own platform and actually do it on our platform, and our content actually makes that platform really successful, I think other content creators will then follow suit and join this platform instead. And it's like wherever the content is, right, all the great quality platforms are actually meaningless if they are actually doing it without these great content creators. It's like Instagram paying influencers or TikTok paying influencers to really create content or short form videos for them in order to make the platform great. So without all these great content creators, TikTok wouldn't be great in the beginning, right? So what do you guys think about this perspective? Am I wrong or absolutely right? Or I'm just like painting with broad paintbrush by saying things like that?
I think both need each other, because the content creators, you can get lost in the noise if you go off on your own without a platform to support you, to bring the audience to you. And also, like, if you are a platform, if you don't have great content, you also lose your audience, right? So I think they both need each other in terms of, in my viewpoint, but you also need to be able to screen to make sure that for quality for both.
Very good point. Edric?
Yeah, I think Anna's spot on with that one. At the end of the day, it's a relationship, right? Certain relationships have, I think it's maybe what we might be talking about might be the power struggle within the relationship, but is a relationship nonetheless.
And it's definitely not a binary either or situation, right? Definitely, it can be a perfect marriage. And there are so many naysayers or people who are, eking out a living in the podcasting realm and so used to the traditional way of doing podcasting, either from the recording side to the distribution side. When they hear news that people are saying that Clubhouse is going to cease podcasting because everybody is going to do live content, audio content over that platform instead. That's absolutely wrong, isn't it? Because that could be actually a perfect marriage. Having live podcasting together with Clubhouse, both can grow together. It doesn't need to be a binary situation. And I think it's something that I can backtrack as well when I say that, we have to be really treading carefully with Netflix because without content, there will be nothing. Actually, that's not true because both require each other to survive. And I think this is shown even more clearly with the pandemic, right? It shows that we need to live one another. We need to live together. We need to come together and really be collaborative to make things happen. And it's not about like, I have to kill you to make my building looks taller or I have to pull your building down, right? So I think in that case, do you guys think that by collaborating on more projects like this, you also evolve and grow, and to be able to see more action means that you're also putting your work out there and continuously grinding and improving on your quality of your work?
Yes. I would say when you collaborate with someone, it's not 1 + 1. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 3 because you get to inspire each other, bounce ideas, and co-create. And I think the genius of the group is greater than genius of the individual.
Edric?
Yeah, absolutely right. Anna, you definitely hit that one on the head. Honestly speaking, right, to your point about doing podcasts live on Clubhouse, for example, right? Now, the thing is, how many people can really do live? Many times, not everybody's a one-take wonder. Not everybody can do it perfectly. And depending on the format of the podcast, certain things you can't do it live either. You have to use post-production. So there's a market for everything. There's a market for everybody. Back to the point on collaboration as well. It's just a great learning opportunity, and that's the reason why I keep doing the podcast. Like every time I interview someone, I meet somebody, there's so much to learn. Just like I'm learning from you how you're doing things, how you're running the podcast, how you're even surviving this 2-day extreme Podfest Asia where you're barely getting enough sleep, but yet you're still just trucking on, man. You're awesome in doing that. Seriously. So there's so much to learn, and Anna's experience in storytelling allows myself to also think a little bit deeper of how I should structure things that I should say, how I should say it, and plus just listening to others also give you a sensing and good perspective on what you can do, how you can do it, and also how you can make it yours. So
this is brilliant. This is brilliant because I think we are so aligned on this, and we are collaborating. We are seeing action in Clubhouse together. We're doing this Clubhouse Drama Club together. So I'm in the company of all these two greats, and I'm so honored to be part of this project. Thank you, Edric, and thank you, Anna. Maybe before we round it off and shut down this session, right? Just want to say that my model is the same as yours, same as Anna and Edric. My model is just like Apple, which is, or maybe my model is based on the Beatles, the band, which I love from Liverpool, where, the sum is greater than its parts. Because once you take out a Ringo or you take out John Lennon or Paul McCartney or George, right, it's never the same again. So by working together, we can really make great things happen. And being part of this tribe, we can embark on crazy journeys together. And you guys, encouraging me and also making more confident to do something that I've never tried before. So I have to thank both of you so much for it.
Oh, thank you. Really, everybody's got a big part to play here. And more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's listening out there, please join us for the Clubhouse Drama Club. We will definitely be posting some details of when and where we're going to be. So look us up. And, if you're going to follow any of our podcasts or productions, please look us up. I'm with the Epic Podcast, also on, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. And please, shameless plug, please.
Yes. So if I have a show coming up on March 9th. Edric's going to tell a story. Watch Your Story Slam at the Projector. We're on Eventbrite. So I'm on LinkedIn. So I'd love to connect with everyone. Just look for Anna Ong, Storyteller. I'm normally the first one that pops up. Or Anna Ong, What's Your Story Slam. Very easily stalked nowadays. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
It's great having you guys on, and I'm looking forward to our next Clubhouse live reading. So much looking forward to it. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you,
brother. Come on, brother. Let's go.
Bye. Thank you. Hayden, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, Wayne?
Super tired. But after your this one-to-one conversation with you, right, I'll be going. I'll hit the sack and at least 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and continue on with my night session because I think I have another 12 more speakers coming on to the festival. So yeah, trucking along, but with you adding a fuel, providing me this push factor. So thank you for agreeing to do this, Hayden. Really appreciate that.
Anytime.
Tell us about your recent project. I think there's great news that you just posted on LinkedIn, on your social as well, that your recent event is going to be available for streaming, right, on OTT. Tell us more about that news.
Our event is, I'm the premier founder of the ASEAN Fashion Designer Showcase. So this year we did an online version of the show. It's called the ASEAN International Digital Fashion Week. So whereby we not only showcase the works of ASEAN designers, but we also bring in international designers who are our partners that we have showcased digitally on their platforms, like in Kazakhstan, US, the FNL Network app, Serbia Fashion Week, Stockholm Fashion Fair, and Mahmoud Fashion Week also. So they have come in to support the ASEAN Fashion Design International Digital Fashion Week, and from that we did the show here live in Singapore. We streamed it live for 4 days. So after which that show has gone on, is now being streamed in China via the website and on the app with CCTV. And yesterday we launched it with FNL Network on the FNL International Digital Fashion Week app. So you have to just download the app. It's free, and you can choose whatever shows you want to watch.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a great piece of news, right? It's like seeing the fruits of your labor, not just blossom, but you're able to actually get more reach as a result of all this content now made available on more multi-channels, right?
Yes, indeed. But I think it's good that everyone can reach out to these designers because, with all the pandemic going on, all our realistic shows has been shut down, totally shut down. So this is the only way we have to go now. It's virtual.
And of course, you're one of the prime movers and shakers in terms of like pushing, your fashion industry and of course some of your shows as well, right? On the virtual platform and using the live streaming as a go-to platform for, continuing to do all these great work and also bringing together all these great fashion designers around the region, right? So you're showcasing them, you're continuously, pushing out content as well with all these fashion week events. So tell us, in terms of like putting together a show like this where you feature 64 designers from 21 countries and you collaborated with all these different partners, right? How much effort and time does it take to put on a project of this scale?
Time is actually we this was just decided on the spot of the moment when I decided with my partner, the Homeground.Asia, that say, come, let's do a ASEAN version of the online show. So I said, oh, okay, let's do it then. And that we got the show going, the whole show compiled, and it was actually 2 months. So yeah, the time is short, but because of the team's commitment and dedication and passion to this project for the ASEAN team, they did their videos with a lot of passion and pushed it out in time, and that we could compile it. So that was a good factor. For the international teams of designers, is because some of them have been on lockdown. some tried to film, some we had used existing films. So to put it all together was a period of actually within a month, we compiled the whole show to put it together.
That's amazing. And in such a short amount of time, you guys must have worked like throughout 24/7 in order to make sure that this is a successful event.
No, not 24/7. It's closer to the date, then it's a bit 24/7. But before that, of course, there's a lot of brainstorming, as in like what goes through your head. How would you like to see the show? How would the viewer perceive the show to be? And because the varieties of designers on this platform are really vast, means we have new designers to veteran designers. We have accessory designers, shoe designers. So to compile it into a show that people can relate to, how to put it together. So there's a lot of think through and how to do the lineup. And each day is a different showcase. So it's a 4-day show. So one show is each show is 1 hour. So it's just the whole thing through of the lineup as to what an audience would see and want to see to keep them interested to look at the show.
Was the idea for this event, you're doing someone else's idea, suggestion, or was it like a client or a partner's request?
No, this was my idea actually. So, but I mean, this is an old idea that we just repackage it to a modern day version to make it content available and friendly to the viewer, so that they don't have to go through a lot of off-on sound, sound blockage and all that stuff. So we had to repackage it in a very modern way. That's it.
I think this is great because it makes it so accessible. And like the last thing I want is to attend another webinar type of event where you have to create an account, you have to log in order to have access to all this great content, right? So one of the things about your event is that it's accessible to everyone, and you're doing replays as well on social.
Correct.
So tell us in terms of the reach, right? And how many people have actually watched these events?
Honestly, I haven't had time to go and look into the numbers, but I know the numbers are fairly huge from what I have checked a couple of weeks back. So, but now because I'm planning for a new showcase happening in August, and I'm planning for next year's showcase. So that's why I really haven't looked at the numbers, to be honest with you.
But I'm thinking aloud, this is just something that I'm estimating because you are featuring 64 designers from dozens of countries, right? So the amount of reach in those countries must be immense because everyone is also experiencing this pandemic at home. And when you're at home, right, you have more time to maybe consume content, especially live streaming or virtual events like yours. And in so many countries, especially there's such a vast population in Southeast Asia. So maybe share with us in terms of the scene for fashion, events like this. How big a scale in terms of the demand as well? Are we talking about potential reach of millions of people in Southeast Asia, and also in terms of like how fashion has taken on in this part of the world, right? And people, being more interested in fashion than ever before because of the prevalence of platforms like Instagram. And of course, there are more people talking about fashion these days. So it's more under the spotlight. People's taste or desire or demand for that has grown, right? And there are not many people who are doing fashion content these days. So do you think that this is going to be continuing to grow in terms of your prediction as well? How this fashion, doing events in fashion, for example, do you see a lot of potential and a lot of legs to see more growth in these areas?
I think before pandemic time, fashion shows or realistic fashion shows were still going on. I mean, before the pandemic, the global pandemic hit, the last pot that I and my team and I were in was actually in Nanning, China. So that was in January 2020. So we came back slightly before the whole global pandemic went haywire. Yeah, so I mean, yes, there is still a demand for people to watch realistic fashion shows, and people are still interested in fashion shows. But because of the pandemic thing, they have learned and to understand more what online fashion shows are about. Online fashion shows is actually not a new platform in that sense of speaking. It was done before, but it's just that in this current time now, it has become more apparent to people that, hey, this is the only way we can see a fashion show. And so the content of the fashion show has to be vast. So that's why I put 64 designers in the showcase to give a different, everyone's palette of fashion and taste is very, very different. So we try to give each one a bit of taste lab, basically, so they can enjoy a bit of fashion during this time. You may not buy it, but at least you can enjoy it because you have nowhere to go.
And of course, with all this pent up demand as well, right? Is basically your content will drive a lot of interest, a lot of demand in terms of driving them to the e-stores to also maybe make a purchase, because it's like immediately after you see something that you like, maybe a design that you like, how it's been worn by all these fashion models, and it's all these designers coming onto the show to talk about the process of designing those pieces as well. It inspires people to actually go to the website and actually make a purchase, right? So do you find that there's a connect between e-commerce and also the fashion events that you do is driving a lot of traffic, driving a lot of conversions to people in Southeast Asia who are now able to make a purchase anywhere from their smartphones?
Yes and no, in the sense of speaking, because still in Asia, a lot of us think that foreign brands are better. So the support for local brands is still not quite there yet. But by offering this platform, we hope that people become more aware of local brands, what local brands can offer. So in that sense, in the near future, they will be more apparent to know that, hey, actually local brands are just as good as foreign brands. We should support local brands. I think that is an important message that we have to put across. Supporting local brands. It's not just about foreign brands or big brands that have a big A&P budget. Because local brands are good, but we don't have that big A&P budget. So yeah, offering a showcase of this level and giving them this platform makes audience aware that there are good local brands.
This is fantastic because, it's all about communication and marketing end of the day to really cut through the noise and maybe even arm wrestle this, against the likes of all these global labels or all these overseas fashion labels, right? And designs. And of course, we always want to champion our region, some of the those who are creating great work, especially. And you are really doing great job in terms of getting their story told, and doing showcases like this allow them to be discovered by new audiences. So I think in terms of getting the message out and communicating, do you think that these days is even more necessary to be really super loud about doing what you do, and to also have this in multi-channel platforms where it's not just on the usual Facebook, Instagram, where designers can actually share their work, share their designs, or tell their stories behind the process, but they should also get on to interesting audio platforms, to tell their stories, to actually be super loud about what they do, even on platforms like Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse yet?
Not yet. Soon.
I'm going to send you an invite because I want you to experience it, and I understand that you're going to be also see more action in Clubhouse. And one of the platforms, or one of the great things about this platform, is that we are predicting that there will be 1 million podcast shows that will be produced or birthed as a result of Clubhouse, because there's so many people now testing their signals in Clubhouse and using that as a platform to really be super loud about what they do. So if we are given an invite, right, starting today, for example, who would you invite, to actually jam with you and maybe talk about fashion design, to maybe talk about, fashion designs in the region that we should champion and tell their stories? Are there anyone in mind that you think would be great to jam with you on an episode where you
so many
on Clubhouse?
people that I have collaborated with over the last year. One of which whom I would invite would be Felix Fu. He's the choreographer that I worked with the last project in China, Nanning. He's a great choreographer because he puts a lot of passion into understanding the designers' work, their character, their lifestyle. So I would like to explore about his thoughts more about fashion. Another person I would really like to chat with on this platform would be Rocco. Rocco is the CEO of FNL Network, who has developed this app that all these fashion can be shown throughout the world. So these are some of the great people that I would love to chat with. Of course, there's my whole team of ASEAN designers. Because each one of them does have a different story to tell. And it would be interesting for me to be able to share with the audience what their story is about, what their DNA is about, what is their passion, what drives them, what motivates them. So this not only gives inspiration for people to move on, but also gives inspiration to the young fashion students so that they would have a better direction of which to move in the future, in the near future when they graduate.
This is fantastic. I think fashion is still very much about the visual element, right? But you're going to complement, that visual element which you already have with your showcases over your live streams and your websites and on your social pages as well. And now you're complementing that visual element with that audio, the social audio platform element as well, to invite more people to come and join in your conversation and really, lift the industry up, raise the tide, so that all boats get lifted at the same time. You're able to impact more on the fashion designers around 21 countries, I think, in Asia and beyond, right? So is this something that you are really, really excited and looking forward to?
Whenever there's a new project, I'm very excited. Coming on this show with you, I'm really excited. It's like, oh, podcast. Okay, this is new. Okay, I'll try it. It's fun. I like it, Wayne. Thank you so much for that. And yes, whether I will pursue it, I might, to be honest with you, because it's interesting. And I think it's a good way for audience to relate to a designer, what the designer is about. Because it's just besides seeing your work. Your work is one aspect. What are you? What is the designer? Because at the end of the day, it's about a lifestyle that a designer projects that will fit the lifestyle of the potential customer out there. So that is important.
And also in Clubhouse, right? Something that I really amazed by Clubhouse is the opportunity to meet people from all walks of life, from all verticals. And it's not just the celebrities and, the famous people who are on it that you have access to, but also, people from all walks of life, the average, Joes and Janes as well. And you're able to really get in the mix and engage in conversation and connect with people. So it's like, I understand that what you are doing, throughout your entire career journey, right, is about connecting people. And most of what you do, either dressing Miss Universe Singapore or like designing National Day costumes during National Day parades, for example, these are all about connecting people through your work. And I think that you're someone who likes to connect with people, right? So Clubhouse is definitely for you.
Yes. You just made me commit. I know. Yes, Wayne. Yeah, but I mean, addressing is about people. It's not just about whether you are a celebrity or you're a title holder. It's not that. I mean, title holders, yes, it's a boost because you're aesthetically perfect in the sense of speaking. So of course, whatever you put on will work. But the real test for a designer is dressing a real person, a real woman, a real guy, because everyone's body is different. There is no standard platform of this is a standard body. No, everyone's body is totally different in terms of dimensions and length and all that. So if you are able to make a real person look good, means you can actually make anyone look good. So that is a challenge on this, I think. It's not just making celebs and title holders look good.
That's a great point. How do designers actually make better designs?
Designs as in the physical clothes, or actually is making the clothes to fit the body, or picking the right clothes to fit the right person's body, lifestyle, character. I think that is important. Skin tone, face shape, and all that. So it's not just about a design, but understanding, it boils down to understanding a person in order to dress the person.
Fantastic. Before we let you go, we want to squeeze in one last question. Because this is a podcast festival, right? Podfest Asia. So we definitely want to ask you some podcast related question. What are your favorite fashion industry podcasts available that help you improve your knowledge, your skills, grow your passion for the fashion industry, or just be entertained? Are there any that you listen to religiously?
My religiously first honest question and answer to you is that you are the first one. So I haven't had the time. So, but I'm very thrilled and very, very happy to listen to your podcast because I find it very, very entertaining and you put in so much effort. So I will do my part and listen to other podcasts. So I can't answer the question because you are my first one.
Thank you so much. It's always great to be someone's first, podcast show that they consume. And if there's, any impact that I put out to this universe, right? And actually are able to have someone say that, oh, you're the person responsible for the first ever podcast episode I ever downloaded. I think that really makes my day more than anything else, like money gains or other, selfish benefits that one could maybe expect from doing what they're doing, either in their job or their career, right? So this is the reason why I'm doing this festival. And thank you so much for agreeing to come on this festival to tell us your great events and some of the success they've gotten over, the last few weeks, and having the ability for us, to also stream your event from the comfort of our living room. I think that's a big thing. And optimizing reach is always what we are after. And, if there's anything else I could do to help to get, your message out or to showcase or put the spotlight on your fashion designers that are, appearing in our shows as well, please do let me know. And I would love to participate in your clubhouse events as well, so that I'll be part of your conversations with what is fashion designers in the region.
You will be my mentor.
No, we learn from each other. Yeah, because you inspire me back as well.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, collaborations is about inspiring each other and getting things moving. Just making an effort to get things going. It's not just about you, but it's not about me. It's about us working together. Collaboration. That is the whole key word nowadays. It's not about me anymore. It's very passé.
And on that note, I think this is a great way to close this session. So thank you so much again, Hayden. And thanks for making the effort to come on to this festival. And I really appreciate you. And I hope to meet you for coffee very soon in downtown Singapore.
Okay, take care.
It's a date. I'll see you very soon.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
So that's Hayden Ng. Check out his ASEAN International Digital Fashion Week. He has a website where he's streaming all the replays from his recent shows. I think he recently did a show for his Chinese partners as well. So do check that out. And right now the time on the clock is 2:30, almost 2:30. So I'm going to go for my short nap and be back at around 7 p.m. for the final night session for Podfest Asia 3rd virtual event. Thank you so much for sticking with us and watching this live stream. I'll be back really soon. See you. Bye-bye.